With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
It's time to head to the World Center of Racing with the eyes of the motorsports world focused on Daytona International Speedway in January. The Precision Racing League lands at this famed and hallowed grounds to do battle for the second of 9 rounds to open up 2024. Delighted to have you along here on RaceSpotTV as we get underway with a doubleheader of GT3 action. GT3 Fix, of course, underway first. Our Junior Kanki party on hand, not alongside with Joey Tebben, but alongside with Ewan O'Leary as we get ready to see some GT3 action. And Ewan, you and I, we love our share of GT3s, and what better time to come to Daytona than building up to the iRacing Daytona 24.
Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect time of year to do this, to visit Daytona for one of our 9 rounds over the course of the Fixed and Sprint Series here this season. Very glad to be here for this one at the start of January. It's a nice calendar, by the way, as well here, formed of great racetracks for GT3 racing, which is exciting all over the world. And so looking forward to coming here to Daytona and having a bit of a preview as to what we can expect over the next month.
It's been a schedule, of course, that's seen the drivers have a pre-season round in 2023, but we got underway on the 2nd of January at Motorland Aragon, and we'll take a look at the points, but they're basically as they finished from there. Jim Feliz victorious with Brett Thurman and Isaiah Osborne through the rest of the top 3, but after this, Hockenheim, Charlotte Motor Speedway going to be quite intriguing, coming just after the iRacing Daytona 24, building up to Suzuka, the halfway point of the season. And then a new track. We always seem to have a new track here and there over the course of these seasons. It's over to Mugello for the first time, Ewan.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to go to, because it's a circuit that traditionally is not very easy to overtake on, but there is a lot of GT racing that goes on around there, and it's not bad. So looking forward to seeing how it really goes there, because of course it will still be a relatively new circuit at the time, although it will have been out for a little while by that point. It's still relatively new, and haven't seen very many officials or leagues visit there just yet, so might be a bit of a learning curve for a few when we get there.
Should be fun. I think that's going to be interesting. And of course, still our run to the championship to come. Of course, a look at the championship points in the drivers' standings, where Jim Feliz victorious in that first race. Got pole position in the fastest lap as well, so 5 points clear of those behind. Keep the margins relatively close, though, as the points are paid out in the Precision Racing League. The important thing to note, though, is that it's not just a drivers' championship. We have a team championship as well, and SGE Esports the leaders in the team championship, well, their drivers, Waldo Walden and Buck Hamilton, are 7th and 8th positions. But in this team championship, Ewan, being consistent is so difficult sometimes.
It very much is, and we can see here that it is not just about being, race winners at the end of this. You're going to need a good teammate, because 87 points after one round is an average of, finishing well up towards the front of the field, and that's what it's going to take over the course of the entire season to, just be up there and stay up there throughout the course of the season. 87 points is 43.5 or so, which is an average of the top 8, and I'd imagine it's going to stay like that over the course of the season. And the fact that we've got a couple of teams as well, even a few teams within a few points of each other, is good news as well, because sometimes we can get a runaway winner from very early on.
Are you suggesting here, by the way, that we do math on a broadcast this early on? How dare you?
That's a new record for me, actually, talking about championships so deeply after one round. But
exactly, that's the other thing.
I do it early every time, but that is a new record.
Well, we're only one round in, of course, so long to go in that championship. The drivers are out there for qualifying. Let's take the time to thank those that make this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount also using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And last but not least, Advanced Motorsport. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsport. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver today. Qualifying underway, and a qualifying session that counterintuitively actually relatively important to be up towards the front. And why do we say that? Well, because Ewan, if there is a breakaway at a track like this, we know how strong the draft can be and how much games can be played. You don't want to leave yourself running out of time to close gaps towards the front.
Yeah, and the further down you qualify as well, the more chance there is that a split is created in front of you and you're not part of that leading group, because as you say, that's the important part here at Daytona and road course racing. You need to be part of that front group, because there will be a split at some point. We're not going to see all 45 of them or 47 of them who are entered at the moment go towards the line together, are we? It's going to split apart at some point, and you need to be at least close to the front to be part of that leading group.
And you see the drivers out there in what is an open qualifying session, so 20 minutes. They share the track, and therefore draft going to be important in qualifying as well. As Raya Osborne is at the top, but pipped by Shreyas Venkataraju. Jared Keen's in second, but the margins up towards the front, we're talking thousandths between the drivers, and 1 second at this point in time covers the top 35.
Yeah, it's ironic we were mentioning about how important it is, this qualifying session, but it's also one of the ones where it is closest over the course of the field. Just, a tenth of a second separating the front three at the moment. Half a second separates the top 14 drivers right now. It is remarkable, and that is, of course, all with the added difficulty of it's being an open session, not only finding space on the circuit, but sometimes finding a friend who you can draft off of on the oval sections of this racetrack.
Look how lonely some of these drivers are, as we see David Morse to the line. Kevin Santana's jumped up into 14th spot, but Morse seemingly content to run by himself. And toward the back, you can see how much separation there is, that now we're going to wait a good 15, 20 seconds before we see the next driver to the line. You want to be on track at this point. There isn't going to be time to get back out on track if you're on pit lane, and so all of the drivers inside of the top 10 running out there, except for Jared Deploy, who is, as I said that, just pulled down and off the track. 90 seconds left to go in the session.
Yeah, he's ninth and will be there at best for him. Peter Muller is the first driver otherwise to be in the pit lane. As you can see, he's 15th at the moment. Shreyas Venkataraju has got the chance here and sort of the duty almost to try and do as well as possible with this last lap so he can protect that pole position, which is coming under fire.
Remember, they will be allowed to finish the lap that they're on in front. They're going to go side by side as the 99 breaks the timing beam, but 3/10 off and off the throttle early, so he will not improve. And already Jeff Carollo has found just that little bit more time to slide his way to provisional pole. Closing seconds now of this session with 45 seconds left on the clock. You see the pair of lunatic racing cars, Rob Campbell, the Porsche running to the line and towing the Ferrari behind, but these are going to be some of the final drivers that get to the line in time.
Yeah, 30 seconds remaining. I reckon maybe those who are coming through the bus stop can just about make it, but there's a pretty big gap further back than that that's going to prove to be pretty difficult to get there in time. Seeing Kevin Santana there in the McLaren, which I'm absolutely a fan of, by the way. I know it gets a bit of stick sometimes, but I'm very glad someone's using it. He will just about make it over the line in time, and time will just about run out on those final couple of drivers. So this is the last chance now for those who are still out on the circuit.
So here's Ian Cabana. He will be the first to see the checkered flag and does find a small improvement in time. Ross Sortino's jumped up to 21st. We're maybe a bit more accustomed to seeing him further up through the field. How many drivers are trying to just maximize their way to the line? That's William Fenton, who ducks down onto the apron, just trying to find every single thousandth that he can. But here comes Azariah Osborne in that Audi on his run to the final lap of his qualifying session.
Yeah, I reckon there could be a little improvement here, but might not be much. No, indeed, not enough or anything at all. I think Brett Thurman's going okay as well here at the moment. He's 10th right now. Tyler Graff, I think, didn't have a very good final bus stop chicane, and so he pulls to the pit lane at maximum 7th for him. There goes Thurman. He's up to 4th.
That was a nice lap from him. Not sure who else is still on laps. That will improve as Devin Brock goes up into 13th spot. Plenty of drivers going to practice a pit stop here. We are going to see one trip down to the pit lane, and it's not a bad idea to try and practice that. There's Jay Steffi, though, almost straddling the apron there on his run towards the line. Didn't seem to unsettle the car too much, but doesn't find any more improvements as here come the final drivers, who I think are all thinking about pit stop practice.
Or indeed just returning to pit lane anyway. In some ways it is an easy way, an easy pit lane to get onto, because you can see it right from the exit of NASCAR Turn 4, but also you're coming from the biggest speed with regards to miles an hour. To get that slowed down in time is tricky in that regard, so a little bit odd, and does take a little bit of practice down here at Daytona. As the final few drivers come over the line, Andrew Trickett, one of those who can't improve on this last lap.
And I think that is effectively the session in the books, because William Fenson's going to run back around, but pretty sure he already has seen the checkered flag. And so it is going to be Jeff Carollo that grabs the pole position here. Look at those margins, though. The top 6 drivers separated by under a 1/10 of a second.
And look at the gap from Osborne to Bonatti as well. That's over 2 tenths, and it's very difficult in qualifying to say where the gap is going to form between the leading group and the rest. But if you were to place any money on this, then you'd have to say between 6th and 7th right now, because there is an obvious gap in qualifying between those two drivers.
It is also, though, the race, the sort of race where it is all going to be about how you stay out of trouble. And so the braking of the pack sometimes is, especially in a track like Daytona, where in a fuel-saving race you win, we're not necessarily going to talk too much about strategy in the early stages of this race, because we might see plenty of drivers just staying behind and saving fuel.
Yeah, that's a very key strategy in this one as well. How can you save fuel? How can you shorten that pit stop? Because it will be defining over the course of the race. If you can get out ahead of the rest and be on your own, nobody drafting off of you in the lead, you could be cruising to a victory.
Well, we've got exciting races up on deck without a shadow of a doubt, but it is all going to be the story about how you manage that fuel. The night lights beckon here at the World Center of Racing. Let's run you down trackside to the starting grid for the 35-minute sprint. Carollo on pole with a 1:45.059. He's going to be thrilled with that effort out of the Vulture Motorsports car, be alongside his fellow teammate. And in the team championship battle, that's important as well, as Shreyas Venkataraju 25 thousandths off as that apparently is only the second pole position of Jeff Carollo's career. We're just going through the history books. It's SRT behind them with Jim Feliz, the previous race winner, alongside Brett Thurman. Jared Keenan is Raya Osborne, making up the rest of the top 6. Andre Bernardi, Tyler Graf, 7th and 8th with Sully Saad. In the Shore is a lunatic entry alongside Felix Feliz, Rob Campbell, and then Jared Duploy make up the 6th row of the formation. Hopefully not unlucky 13th for Devin Brock. Jay Steffi rolls on his outside with Andrew Ellis 15th, Kevin Santana in that McLaren, the fire-breathing McLaren 16th, and then Peter Moller, Evan Mackay 17th and 18th positions. On the edge of the top 20, Rodrigo Morales and Ryan Reeves, Buck Hamilton and Ross Sortino are 21st and 22nd, with Jason Finch, Andrew Trickett, and then Andrew Rasmussen and Dale Peterson, Colin McKenzie, William Fenton, and then Kevin Berquist and Christopher Ryans making up the rest of the top 30. We've got a 47-car field to run through, so as they begin their formation lap, we'll cycle through the names: Carnes, Walden, Davis, Alexander, Luna, Wright, Bammer, Johnson, Pruitt, Mulholland, Deweese, Jeffries, and we're still only 1.5 seconds off the pace with Cabana, Miller, David Moores, and then Brian Hotham and Christopher Perez making up the rest of the field. I'll look at some of the drivers underway because it's always great to be able to do so. Some of the drivers getting ready for the sprint series. What do you think's going through the mind, though, of the drivers, Ewan, who are getting ready to rumble here for 35 minutes?
Well, the first objective, getting through turn 1 and the infield section, more importantly, for the first time, and then very quickly minds will shift towards which group am I in? Can I stay with the leading group? And if I've qualified well and in and around the top 10, you'd really hope that you can make that opening group. Further back, it is going to be about picking your way through the one that you find yourself in and getting the best result that you can, because some of these drivers will already know they won't be competing for a race win, even a podium today.
Expectations then, how many drivers are going to get caught out on this opening lap?
I think a few. There's 45 or so of them, a little bit more than that, so we could well see quite a few drivers fall afoul of this opening lap.
Well, pace car is off and away. Fields left in control of Jeff Carollo, and we're racing at the world centre of racing. Great look for Jim Feliz to get to the inside of Venkata Raju. Behind them, plenty of side-by-side moments as we're led down into the opening corner. Off the banking, the car's on low. No real three-wide moments for the most part as we cycle off in towards the International Horseshoe. It's single file for the top 10 or so, and a tidy start through 47 GT3 machines.
And yeah, you've got to be single file a bit further back as well, because the way that the leaders have sorted themselves out mean that they could go and a break could form very quickly. Even the front three are thinking about this one at the moment. They're pretty close to each other, and a couple of defensive shapes being given off by Jim Feliz at the moment, who's looking to hold on to that second position and does so out of the West Horseshoe as well. Looks like, I was just about to say we got everyone through, not quite.
Dale Peterson, Ryan Luna, Andrew Rasmussen. I think those are a handful of the cars that got shaken up there as Rob Campbell slides up the inside of Felix Feliz off of the infield section and back onto the banking. You can see the orange in the background as the sun's in the horizon, but you've got Venkata Raju behind Feliz with Carollo now riding up front riding up front as we go in towards that bus stop chicane for the first time of asking.
Here we go. It's very high speed commitment through these 4 turns, of course. Nose to tail pretty much between the top drivers in this class. And there's the first break. You can see it's quite a long way back. We've got a very big leading group indeed. That first break coming with William Fenton back in 24th position. We have got a lot of drivers in contention here and a lot of excitement to come.
It could potentially still work out, though, that William Fenton, only 1.3 seconds away, could close back up in the draft. Venkata Raju's popped up high in the Porsche, just breaking out of that tow. You can see behind as well, Andre Bernardi's got almost a full second to Sully Saad, but you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's no real moving and shaking. We had a couple of moments of drama down the back of the field, and it's still quite intense as Kevin Santana in that McLaren is behind Devin Brock and looking to the inside.
Big move down the inside and wasn't going to be given the room. Good job he didn't keep his nose alongside into the International Horseshoe, because he would have got his nose chopped off there and got into contact. Thankfully that didn't happen, and he preserves the best livery in all of motorsports in 12th position, the number 12 car of Devin Brock at the moment. It just 5 seconds behind the leader Jeff Carollo on this second lap. It's been a good clean start for the first half of the field, certainly.
Well, William Fenson's now had an issue, and so that gap that you were mentioning has well and truly built on up, and so it's 4 seconds between 21st and 22nd, but we continue to watch the tail end of the pack. Why don't we begin to start trying to figure out what all has happened as we take a look at, I believe it's going to be Ian Cabana who runs into the International Horseshoe and gets a bonk from behind.
And I think he very nearly got into the back of one of the other McLarens in front of him before sort of weaving out the way and going straight in front of a BMW, which would tip him around. Another rear ending here into the West Horseshoe. That's one of the Porsches that has sort of gone after another incident between one of the Audis and another Porsche into the same corner.
And so that was Andrew Rasmussen that had gone around. That's now Peterson, who in the Audi I think got tangled up with Rob Jeffries, and I've got to say this is just a chaos of 47 machines on the opening lap.
Yeah, and it's everyone running into the back of everyone else. It's the concertina effect that people have not quite expected, and that's a surprising amount of rear endings in one go, actually. Normally you see some different variations of an accident, but we've just seen the three same ones there.
And there's been even more chaos from what I can see down the rest of the pack. So back over to the replay we go as Venkataraju's increasingly under fire. They went 3 wide in towards turn number 1. And then Evan Mackay takes a line that I don't think you're quite meant to take and bounces off the wall. That's a car that's very much damaged. What then happens between Colin McKenzie and William Fenton directly in front?
Let's see into the first corner. Oh, I thought they were going to clip the inside wall. Instead it's a spin for one of the Ferraris, and then there's just no time to react. And you mentioned the fact there's 47 cars out there. There's no time to react, but even if he had done, he would have been hit by someone else who eventually wouldn't have had time to react, and you get the idea. Everyone would have piled in, so pretty unlucky there for everybody else.
As mentioned, that was William Fenton and Dale Peterson. A handful of cars getting mixed up in some of those replays. That is the best livery in all of motorsports that's gone around, and now Devin Brock dropped outside of the top 20, but we're going to be 3 wide surely for a moment here as you've got Ross Sortino, Peter Moller, and even Jay Steffi in the gaggle running down into the chicane.
Yeah, Steffi just going to push Andrew Ellis at the moment. Oh, he's going to go for it as well into the corner, and there we go, through into 15th place. So a good move in the end. Didn't think he would go for 2 in 1 actually, but did in the end, and has gotten up to 15th place. Ross Sortino right now. Jay Steffi was leading the group, now is fallen back to 16th. Peter Moller just behind him, and then a load more behind as well. This is a group of 6 which is sort of formed now as the race begins to settle down.
You say settle down, but I think we're just getting into the intense stages. Seemingly not many drivers in this grouping trying to save too much fuel, as outside line not necessarily going to work in that Precision Racing Esports car behind. You see a dive as well. Buck Hamilton going to run the outside line, allows Ryan Reeves to just squeak on through on the inside. I think this is all just some gamesmanship between them, though.
Sorry, I saw in the background there of turn 1, there was someone who actually got some airtime after being hit. I'm absolutely sure of it, unless I'm seeing things. I'm absolutely sure somebody got hit and got some airtime there off the and lifted off the ground at turn 1. Must have been just outside the top 20 or so. I couldn't tell you for the life of me who it was from that distance.
Let's take a look at the replay, and it's Rodrigo Morales that has a bit more contact with the Lunatic Racing cars, and that's a little bit dramatic as the contact with the outside wall.
He must have hit it in such a nice direction that he lifted his left wheels off the ground. That was a bit odd. But clear suspension damage on that Porsche, and these cars are pretty difficult to drive at the best of times, and or the Porsche is anyway, I find, and that damage won't help.
So 47 now down to 45 because Rodrigo Morales and Ryan Luna may have retired. Evan Mackay, the only driver to have come down pit lane and to head back out. Don't forget you can head to PRL.RaceSpotTV to follow along with your favorite driver in the field. Ewan, are you feeling any tinge of regret that you're not out there driving rather than in the booth here today?
Well, I can't, first of all, but also, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's always fun to be out there, especially at Daytona. I think the racing is fantastic around here. I know that it's not a good circuit to drive on. I understand that, and I don't enjoy it particularly either, but it's a great circuit for racing on. I hope we get the sort of grandstand finish that this race does deserve.
It does tend to happen at Daytona as well, doesn't it? You can look at that track map to see that we are starting to increasingly see some separations as Jim Feliz, half defensive, half offensive into the horseshoe, went very much to the inside. Venkataraju's not going to be able to take advantage. There's the first gaggle, though, that is separated. Sully Sard and Felix Feliz fighting for 10th and 11th spots.
Yeah, good. Big move from Venkataraju down the inside there. That was very late. And there was an impossible gap down the inside, but he's made it work. And Jim Feliz will be on the inside again. He realises, as the driver of the 99, that maybe that's not a good idea right now. Feliz will go back through to the racing line, but the gap opens up to Carollo to over 0.8 of a second.
I'm not quite sure if there was a little bit of miscommunication there potentially between the drivers. There's a storm brewing! Oh! And there's a lunatic car around that had already lost the clip before the 360. Another lunatic car shot the front end of the Ferrari, an SRT Porsche in the mix as well. And it wasn't a very good rejoin, was it?
Well, it was partly that, but also the Porsche was unsighted behind all of the GT3s ahead, that it just drove straight into the Ferrari there, and unfortunately more contact than really was needed to be the case. Well, that was it. I mean, it was a mess right from the very moment we joined up with it, wasn't it? We saw it, you said it was brewing, and it didn't take very long for it to materialise, unfortunately. And what was that, 4 or 5 cars ending up with damage in that one move?
And we'll take a look at the replay in a moment, but goodness, I mean, that was a bit of an MMA brawl, and they're all stumbled up behind Joseph Carnes now for 24th position. So no matter where you look through the field, we mentioned that draft was going to be significant in the early stages of this race. It allows you just to stay that little bit closer to one another, as it seems as though further up the field, Jared Deploy is going to try and make some moves, but as we go too wide, a couple of rows deep, one car grabs 2 position in the space of 1 straight.
And the Ferrari's going nowhere. Not sure whether that was a straight line speed issue or whether the driver just thought, really don't want to be a part of this. One of the rare Mercedes right round the outside here as well through turn 1. Be side by side through the chicane, and they'll keep it clean, thankfully, but the inside line at the International Horseshoe will prevail, and so they'll sort that out. But it seemed the Ferrari was worryingly slow on the straight line there, and I don't particularly know why.
Well, one thing that we found out in IMSA Esports, at least based on the standard iRacing BOP, is the Ferrari is not as strong on the straights as the Mercedes. That was a case in point example of why, but maybe we'll see it more over the course of the remaining part of the race. There was an initial tag that saw the SRT 111 get involved, and then as the Ferrari tried to nose its way up the inside, well within its rights to do so, it didn't go great, and here comes the field streaking on through.
And the Porsche there, see what I mentioned, not particularly unsighted, but just almost not concentrating on what was happening in front.
Just to be clear, it's the Ferrari rejoining from the left that I feel like is what really led the Porsche astray.
I didn't really look at it like that. Yeah, maybe that's true, actually. They look the same, don't they? These 2 Ferraris, and unfortunately have performed some sort of pincer movement on this Porsche. Whether intentionally... yes, you are probably correct, actually. I don't know.
Too many different angles, yeah.
It probably didn't help. And so, unfortunately, big or more damage than really needed to be the case there. It was all a bit messy through the International Horseshoe, and here is as well.
That is a Seabell racing car, isn't it? That's Ross Ortino that spun it around, and he's now in 20th. Was a championship protagonist last season, but hasn't necessarily started this calendar year off in the way that he would have wanted, and now also has tyres that will be screaming out in agony.
Yeah, and clearly something a little bit wrong with that car. The line was a bit wrong on the way towards the International Horseshoe, clearly nursing something. There's the big stop into turn 1, and this is all okay.
You can see it in the rearview mirror. Sorry, that was an interesting camera angle from which to ride. I was paying attention, but yes, we'll need to take another look at that, maybe with the correct car.
I wasn't paying attention, sorry about that. I was looking ahead. So here is, I thought that these 2 were actually going to rear-end each other, but they got away with it. Instead, the Ferrari goes steaming down the inside and clips the inside wall.
Now, we saw a few netcodes with the wall in IMSA Esports. I don't think that necessarily classes as a netcode. It classes, unfortunately, as driving into the wall, but being slightly unsighted, that you can understand that. Check back in with the leaders who find themselves in, I think, what is classified as a 9-car train right now, even though there are some larger gaps through the pack. You can see Isaiah Osborne in the Audi struggling to hold on to the Porsches. It's in the name. This is GT3 fixed, Ewan, so we are going to be in that situation where maybe the Audi's running a little bit more wing and so struggling in a straight line compared to the others.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, to be the only non-Porsche in this group, or even in the top 10 right now, is a very impressive thing. The next best non-Porsche is back in 12th position, a good 4.5 seconds behind. That's Kevin Santana in the 666 McLaren, who is next in line. So to even be here at the moment for Osborne is absolutely fantastic, I think, and so he's just going to have to do what he can with all the other Porsches, which just seem so much stronger than the Audi here at the moment, with, yeah, as I say, the rest of the top 10 positions basically.
It is a bit of Porsche domination. Interesting, of course, given how Porsche struggled in the 2023 Rolex 24, of course, a brand new car.
Yeah.
Debuting at the top level of motorsport. We had top speed issues. They had ABS traction control. They're just hoping 2024 it's going to go a bit smoother for them. Look how Jim Felice, though, is really starting to lose a little bit of ground to Carollo. To the outside goes Venkataraju. Not going to send it. Brett Thurman has a half peak, and it's all going to be about who gets onto the throttle the best now as they run their way back through NASCAR's turn 3 and 4.
And they're almost staring each other into the abyss here, because it's 1.2 seconds up to Carollo. Even in a regular circuit, you don't want to battle for P2 very hard, because you're going to let the leader get away. And especially that's the case at Daytona. Now, these 5 have got enough speed to catch Carollo again if they work together in the draft, I do believe. But if they fight like this, then they won't. Felice will have to go on the defensive again here. Venkataraju is on the outside again, but it's sort of half-hearted almost. Now he does go for it in the braking zone, but he's nowhere near going to get around the outside there. He's going to be squeezed out of room. Brett Furman will look to get involved as well. Side by side they'll run through the chicane, and they're just costing each other heaps of time.
Still going to be side by side, and it's into the kink where you really have to get things sorted. Venkataraju finally gets in front. It's up to 1.5 seconds now to your race leader as Jeff Carollo does try to run away at the very point of the field. We can take a look on board with him there. Does he have Daytona as the track map above him? I don't think so.
No, it's a bit of... he's got 2 Barcelonas, though.
I know, and the worst part is I'm pretty sure they're identical. Oh, no, they do. One of them is the good one of them's the bad one.
Oh, yeah, I can see... Yeah, yes, that's true.
The entire third sector is different, to be fair, actually.
Yeah, well, they have changed the entire third sector these days, haven't they? Even for the cars, they do the old motorbike layout. So, yeah, fair enough for that. He's got Interlagos, Red Bull Ring, Laguna Seca. Oh, won't go through them all. But he's got a lot, but not Daytona. You can understand why, really. It's not a particularly interesting layout.
I mean, it's famous. I mean, I guess that's the only thing that it's really got going for it. Of course, in this leading group that you still have a couple of other drivers that still sharing their webcams with us is Tyler Graf, who, ooh, look at the extent that he's gone to. He's actually gotten the look behind him, although I think that's just a video because it's not synced up at all, is it?
That was so exciting for a brief moment, but then disappointment. No, we appreciate the effort to go into there, because that is a lot of effort, but yeah, unfortunately it doesn't quite match up. We'll take it though. It's absolutely fine. He's currently running 6th position, doing the sensible thing in my opinion, just watching those in front battle it out rather than getting involved in it, because I just can't fathom why these guys are doing this to themselves. Do none of them want to win? I mean, they're letting Jeff Carollo get away at the moment.
These races are so often defined by fuel mileage, right? And so I'm maybe a little bit surprised, I'll be honest, in saying that there isn't more fuel saving going on from some of these competitors who now will think about pit stop windows opening, because Andre Bernardi has pit, so is Jay Steffi and Ross Sortino. They're not coming in for tires. It's about a 14-second pit stop for fuel only, and if the window's opened with 18 minutes to go, then hypothetically it might close as early as 10 minutes left in this race. I say early because traditionally it might go a little bit longer. This is a track where you spend a lot more time full throttle though.
It is, and you do tend to burn a lot of fuel around here if you're on your own. But as we keep mentioning, well, I suppose that is part of the reason why I suppose that this track is so dependent on its pit stop and so much rides on it because of what we just mentioned there about the fact that you do burn a little bit more around here. You can save a lot more around here as well, and that's why I really can't understand why these guys are battling instead of saving. It's sort of the double bonus that you get from it. Not only can you stay in contact with the leader, that's one benefit, but you can also save fuel if you're Venkataraja at the moment. I don't understand why he's still trying to make moves. I think he's too far back to even attempt it this time.
Probably this time by, but I get the feeling maybe it's just a little bit of trying to put himself in a better situation. Oh, here we go, onto pit lane, in fact, for a handful of the SRT machines. Tyler Graf will follow them in, and it's always nice to have some company when you exit pit lane as well, just given that this track is so draft dependent. So they search for their box, they've got to make sure they hit the marks as effectively as they can, and now, well, they wait and see how long their pit crew is going to take to fill up their fuel.
And let's see who gets out there first, because as you say, it's good to have friends on there, but not if they come out 2 seconds ahead of you. Then that's really demoralising. So who is going to get out here first? They're all going to go together, basically. They'll be in the same group there, I'd imagine. Jared Keane will be first, followed by Tyler Graf in the group, but they'll be pretty much together. They'll be in traffic as well, though.
They will be, but Graf able to jump one position. Is it going to be a case where the overcut works, the undercut works? They're into traffic that has... in terms of lap time, I'll just keep you updated on that, being going about a second slower than the leaders up front, so that's not ideal by any means. And yeah, I think this is worst case situation, to be completely fair, as Ryan Osborne, Andre Bernardi, they're behind as well, having made their pit stops. Jeff Carolla with a little bit of a gap. We'll see some lap traffic in front. I would not be surprised if he responds this time by. Let's not forget he's been punching the hole in the air in front.
Yes, but you've seen the amount of traffic that's further back. I'm not sure I'd fancy that particularly because of how far down the others have come out, led of course by Jared Keane. They're down at 19th at the moment, and a lot of those in front are pretty close to them, so I don't know if I'd fancy that as Jeff Carollo right now. Clearly he does, because he's hinting that he might come down pit lane, and he does.
I'm surprised that then those behind didn't. And maybe Venkataraju is finally saving a bit of fuel, but he's going to go for the outside. And maybe not a bad thing to try and battle here, given that those behind are being deposited directly into traffic. Let's keep an eye, though, on our race leader as he hits his marks, because as behind him, you also have Rob Campbell, Felix Felice, Sully Sarge, Peter Moller, Jason Finch, and Buck Hamilton in. It's going to be important to see where he comes out in comparison to the rest of those drivers having pitted. They were in pit lane for about 13.3 seconds. He was in pit lane for 14.3 seconds. Yeah, his pit stop a bit longer, but you'd expect that, I suppose. And that's sort of the balancing effect that you've got by the fact he's stayed out or he's led this race and has built a bit of a gap. Here they go. We are going to be pretty much together again here. At least these guys who pitted earlier are going to be right there. Carollo has not got the lead that he used to have. So you see Jared Keane as well, one that's jumped up as well. That looked like Rob Campbell trying to get past a lapped machine. So they have also got some traffic to contend with as well. Going back to your point about battling, if Jim Feliz and Venkataraju find themselves fighting in the draft on this next trip around the banking, it just gives these drivers a bit of an opportunity. Having said that about Carollo, he still has Nicholas Johnson, who's yet to come down pit lane, so the margin back to Jared Keane is still actually 1.5 seconds.
It's similar, but yeah, there's sort of that bridging car in the middle of Nicholas Johnson at the moment, which is just helping them in the number 8, just keeping the group connected somewhat. I wonder where these front two are going to come. I have a feeling that Feliz and Venkataraju could come out behind all of them here if they're not careful. Oh, the 99ers even nailed that or got it wrong.
That is one of the boldest pit entries you'll see, but he's also put himself in a position where Jim Feliz has now got to slow down if he wants to get into the box, and they're going to make contact. I was just trying to mention that pit lane is hot at that point. And it's drama in pit lane. I think Venkataraju then missed the box as well after that. Or maybe it was Jim Feliz. But regardless, I think advantage to Jeff Carollo in this situation.
It's advantage to everyone who's not just come down pit lane. I don't know what that was, or who that was, or what they were doing on pit lane, but they weren't doing the speed. And Venkataraju just drove straight into them. Through goes Carollo. He's going to get the lead. These two will be behind everybody. What a mess that was in the pit lane. It's going to be pretty close, actually. It will be side by side into the International Horseshoe here.
And so Jared Keane has gotten up into second place. I think without that contact, Venkataraju is side by side for the lead. Instead, he's side by side with Tyler Graf, Brett Thurman in front of Rob Campbell and Jim Feliz. It is still 7 cars that technically find themselves in the leading train, but with that 1.7 second buffer up front, Venkataraju just in front of Tyler Graf as there's a spin behind. Did Brett Thurman get tagged? Regardless, he's got around and Rob Campbell's followed him into the grass.
There may have been contact. Rob Campbell also having a problem as Tyler Graf now looks for a podium place. He was sat back waiting and just watching the battles unfold in front of him earlier on in this race, but now he's going for it. Shreyas Venkataraju up on the outside here at Daytona. He's got no help behind him though, as we would see in the Daytona 500. The outside line is never going to prevail, and Tyler Graf should go through with the inside line into the bus stop.
Might not be a bad position to be in though, because now with Graf on the inside, doesn't necessarily give him the best run through the corner, and now back in draft with Venkataraju as through NASCAR 3 and 4 they will go. That little bit of drama means Jeff Carollo's gone. Jared Keane in a very comfortable position, but behind these two, suddenly Jim Feliz in a great situation. And Azariah Osborne almost 3 seconds off. We might see some side drafting between the pair of Porsches as they run to the stripe. You can see the SRT Porsche in front of them, not necessarily feeding either driver too much draft as they unload off the banking once again. Venkataraju bold on the brakes and really too deep, if we're being too honest. Graf holds on for the time being, and guess what? They've lost just a little bit more time to those in front.
Yeah, now first and second place have both got comfortable gaps in front and behind them, I would say, that may well hold to the very end of this race. Further back, there's a lot more groups with very interesting battles happening. Here's one of them in towards the International Horseshoe with Peter Moller slightly on the defensive from Jason Finch there in the middle of this group for 13th place.
You've got to wonder for these drivers with just 11 minutes left to go now. They're only 15 seconds off the leader. If they do start to fight a little bit more up through the field, there is chances for some of these drivers to think about making their way up into the top 10 because they're stacked up behind Azariah Osborne in that Audi. There's Rob Campbell still trying to recover, and we should go and try and figure out why as we catch the aftermath as a pair of Porsches go for a synchronized pirouette.
Yeah, so did Campbell get it wrong himself and rear end the car in front while also he went for a move? Well, that was never really going to happen, unfortunately, for Rob Campbell. He sent himself around and Brett Thurman around, and probably going to get some sort of telling off for that.
Head steward Arnaud Genet will cycle through the incidents after this race. Once the protests get filed by the drivers, there's a process, and penalty points are definitely something that can impact championship battles up and down through the field. So Rob Campbell trying to get past Azariah Osborne. Venkataraju once again trying to get past Tyler Graf. Outside line once again around the outside. The margin up towards Jared Keane means no driver going to feel any sort of hole in the air advantage. Venkataraju a little bit deeper, lap ago, this time a bit controlled, but Graf recognizes where he can break in response, and as Jim Feliz closes behind, it's 3 for third position.
It is, and this will be the most interesting battle for a podium place, I think, for the remainder. Feliz there on a very narrow line. Thought about going down the inside, but thankfully decided that wasn't a very good idea. And Venkataraju will hold on to his 4th position. But it's going to be an interesting battle to the end. I think Venkataraju has probably been the most aggressive of anyone inside the top 5. So it's interesting to see how he'll play this in the latter laps.
I'm still disappointed by that video, not going to lie.
He can't be disappointed. He's put a lot of effort into that.
Oh, he's put a lot of effort into it, but it was so close. It was almost. What is also very cool, if you'll notice, is we get to see the fuel numbers on the right side monitor for Tyler Graf, which is at a track like Daytona. You want to put as little fuel as possible into the car. I think he seems like he's okay. I think that number says 4.8 to finish, right?
I can't read that. I haven't got a chance.
No, okay. I mean, to be fair, it could say 0.8. I have no idea either.
or 14.8. I mean,
no, it's definitely not 14. There's a digit, there's a dot, and there's another digit. But here comes the run from the Vulture Motorsports car, and maybe a bit too early. You want to be in that draft coming out of NASCAR Turn 4 if you really want an opportunity. But there comes the side draft.
Yeah, you want that slingshot past the driver, and you want to be sort of beside them at this point, off of NASCAR Turn 4, so that you can really power past, as we're seeing with Jim Feliz right now. But he's looking to push Tyler Graff instead. Not sure Graff was particularly interested in hanging on to this place this time, but he's sort of been forced into it by Jim Feliz, and he will succeed. Feliz will also try and follow through.
It was a nice little jink to the inside, but as Venkataraju holds the line onto the next corner, all it's done is again cost them just a little bit more time to Jared Keane in front. It's great fighting to watch, yes, but at some point the drivers might need to just start working together or give up the ghost of second spot. There's a Porsche deep under the brakes as behind this gaggle Jason Finch almost runs into the back of Peter Moller as around goes that Precision Racing Esports car.
Oh, such a shame. As there was contact on the exit of the International Horseshoe, but you could see it happening because there was, everyone moving about on the exit of the turn. That was a tentative move down the inside from Andrew Ellis, who tried to get down the inside of Jared Deplew there, but couldn't quite do it, and it was probably a good idea and a good thing that he backed out of it in the end.
It is starting to intensify. I'm seeing an increasing number of incidents start to unfold, and there's Brian Hotham that's gone around down through that second hairpin and now trying to just spin it back around and bring it onto the tarmac. And unfortunate place to be in, all things considered, with what will be, I believe, 4 laps to go at the line for the majority of the field. Jeff Carollo almost 3 seconds clear of Jared Keane, who is not dropping Graf, Venkataraju and Feliz as they work their way back off the banking once again.
It's very difficult to manage around here, but I still think this battle is going to be between these three for that final podium place. Can't see anybody joining from behind. Can't really see them catching Jared Keane for second place here, especially when stuff like this continues to happen. Jim Feliz around the outside this time. Shreyas Venkataraju sort of caught up on the inside. He would very much like to have broken a little bit later there, but Graff was in the way. In the end, it didn't matter, and he hung on to 4th.
We've got 6 minutes on the clock. Drivers hopefully have enough fuel and haven't been shortchanged by how many laps that we are doing based on the pace up from your leader. Santana in the fire-breathing Ferrari on the outside. Sully Sardin, what seems to be a new pairing in the Precision Racing Esports camp in terms of team affiliations, is on the outside of the kink, and now with that McLaren just getting a better run off the corner. Really interested to see just how much better Santana was on power down. You can see Brett Thurman behind feeling bold, but now feeling the pressure for Andre Bernardi. I've got to say, there is so much racecraft that these drivers are having to figure out and instinctually nurse from their cars.
Yeah, you've got to have racecraft absolutely up to scratch around here. There's so much to think about because of that added element of the sort of weightedness of the draft, if you like. That's of course draft on all the circuits, but it doesn't carry as much weight as it does around here at Daytona. That makes it really difficult to know when to pass, how to do it, where to do it, and of course you've got the skill element of actually completing it yourself as well. We're seeing so much of that side-by-side racing as a result. Surely not 3 wide into the bus stop. Well, that wouldn't be very good racecraft, and thankfully these 4 decide that it's not a good idea as well.
Andrew Ellis still holding in front of Deploy for 13th spot, with the SRT teammates at least making it easy to differentiate them. One with the white front end, the other with the blue front end, but there's still plenty to compare between those cars. Off the banking out of turn 1, Tyler Graff now within drafting range of Jared Keane, so it's no longer 3 for 3rd. Instead, it's 4 for 2nd place, you'd have to say. Jim Feliz still lurking very, very dangerously as Venkataraju half looked up the inside once again. Now that you're this close to Jared Keane, surely it makes sense to just close that couple of car lengths more before you have another look.
Well, I don't think Venkataraju's been thinking like that all day long. He was fighting for 2nd place when he was sat in 3rd earlier on, and there he goes again. Way too late on the brakes. And Tyler Graff goes through. He actually didn't lose very much time as a result, but that's a clear indication Venkataraju has not been thinking like that all day long, and he's not going to begin now. Tyler Graff may well get there on his own now. I think they may well be close enough to Keane, but these two might not join him at this rate.
It did seem like there may have been a brief technical issue at that moment as well, so kudos to both drivers for recognizing that and giving each other the room at the very last minute. Here comes more side drafting, and in front, which line is Graf going to pick? He gives the draft to Jim Feliz. So on the outside, a slightly better run into the corner for the 5, and he gets on through as well. Confident stuff from the SRT Esports driver.
Yeah, I think Graf would much rather have Jim Feliz behind him, in all honesty, than Venkataraju, who looks like he wants to overtake at every possible moment. And you can see around here at Daytona, that strategy doesn't really work out. Down 3 on the day, pace clearly there, qualified second at the start, but he's just not quite been up to scratch with it as with racecraft as far as I'm concerned here. He will have to wait for the final 2 laps, which they've just begun now, to try and regain some of those places.
And even 20 laps for the drivers. And let's not forget, fixed series. We got all Porsches in the mix here. They've got identical cars with which to work. It's all about how they get the most from the machine underneath them. That's very, very defensive from Jim Feliz into the international horseshoe. Venkataraju still going ultra aggressive, looking for any opportunity that he can. If you're Tyler Graf, though, you've got 2 laps to figure this out, 1 lap to close, and maybe on the last lap, the run to the line, try to get past for second spot.
Well, then those games are going to begin about, where do you make that move on the last lap? Do you leave it to the run to the line, or do you go for it at turn 1? I don't actually think he's going to have the chance to do it at turn 1, actually, because he needs to be a bit closer at this point, in my opinion, than he is right now. He's not miles away, is he? He will be getting a bit of draft, but I don't think he's close enough to do it into turn 1 this time. I don't think he's got much choice about where he's going to make this move for second, if it's going to come at all.
No, it's going to be on the last lap. It's going to be just if he gets a chance to go for it. 6/10 and closing. You can see behind that the Pink Vulture Motorsports number 99 not closing enough on Jim Feliz to have a look in towards this bus stop chicane on what is the penultimate lap of this race. Nice and tidy for all involved in this 4-car scramble for the final 2 steps of the podium. You can see behind them as well is Ryan Osborne and Rob Campbell going to go door to door as they peel on to NASCAR turn 3. 1 more lap to go. Jeff Carollo clear at the front, but plenty of questions still to be answered behind.
It is 4 for second place, as you suspected it would become. I didn't think they'd catch Jared Keane, I've got to be honest, but Tyler Graf has done a lot of the heavy lifting there, and he's now connected the 2 groups. He's brought along Jim Feliz and Shreyas Venkataraju as well for the ride, but I think they're only going to be fighting with one another as well for 4th place. I think this is going to split off to a couple of pairs at the end of this race. You can see Jim Feliz is already thinking about that as he defends into the international horseshoe.
It's all about that run out of the bus stop, if we're being totally honest, and so right now it's stay calm, stay out of trouble. That's all you're really hoping to do. And it's the same sort of a situation up and down through the field. You can see that track map in that bottom right. You've got so many different battle packs. Graf a little bit wide at that second hairpin, but really it's all now just about the next couple of exits that you really can focus on. This one onto the banking and the one out of the bus stop. Keane early on the turn and trying to get as much onto the inside of the corner as he can to attack his way back onto NASCAR turn 1. And the margin between them's 4/10 as they run towards the chicane for one final time.
The one thing Graf has got to do here is protect his 3rd place and his 2nd place in the group. He can't afford Feliz to be down his inside here, and raised eyebrows there for some reason. He's not as close as you'd maybe expect to be here, but you've got to have that bit of room to slingshot. As we talked about earlier, nicer line from Tyler Graf there. Is it good enough? Because Keane has got good drive off the corner.
I think Keane had to go a little bit patient on throttle. Tyler Graf in response may have slightly been caught out. It will be a drag race to the line between these drivers. Goodness, it's going to be great to watch. But at the front of the field and coming out on top, it's Jeff Carollo that wins at the World Center of Racing. The photo finish behind, we'll see Tyler Graf dive down to the apron, but Jared Keane will hold on by 37 thousandths of a second to 2nd place at the line.
Nice drive from Jared Keane in the end. He did what he had to on the final chicane. He got the drive off the corner, even though his line seemed to be a little bit off, actually. He got good drive, and that's all you need. The run up towards the line in the end wasn't enough for Tyler Graf, who still, I think, drove the best of the front 5 in terms of racecraft to make it up to that podium place.
You can see some of the other drivers who will be finishing up this race. We did have some other close finishes through the field. Let's go back and take a look at the replay as we see the final cars come towards the line because, well, the Audi held on to 6th position in the end, but it was by the narrowest of margins. Israel Osborne up against Rob Campbell in the drag race to the checkered.
Yeah, it was less than 200 of a second in the end, and it was even closer than the battle for seconds. It was Osborne hanging on just ahead of Rob Campbell, and I think I saw further behind someone running out of fuel over the line. I don't know if that was just someone slow, but I could have sworn I saw someone out of fuel.
Would not have been shocked. I have seen a couple of cars slow on that final lap. Chet Miller, Evan Mackay as well, but it could all just be somewhat incidental as the drivers finish things up. Of note, we did proceed into the night conditions, so that's something that we will, of course, keep an eye on when it comes to the drivers in our GT3 sprint race, which is coming up next after we take a quick look at the results and we get a chance to talk to some of the drivers. There's still a bit of a wait for the final pairings to see the checkered flag. They have just seen the stripe and the timing sheets have all been updated. Let's run you down trackside and see those race results. Head down to our post-race coverage. It's Jeff Carollo, 2 and a bit seconds clear in the swarm of Porsches at the front. Jared Keane, Tyler Graf, 2nd and 3rd with Jim Feliz, 4th, Shreyas Venkataraju. A feisty 5th for him. Israel Osborne, the best of the non-Porsches in 6th with Rob Campbell, Kevin Santana, Felix Felice, and then Sully Saad making up the rest of the top 10. Let's not forget, we do have a whole heap of these names to run our way down through, so we will quickly cycle through. Brett Thurman, Andre Benatti, Ryan Reeves, Andrew Ellis, Jared Deploy, Buck Hamilton, Jason Finch, Jay Steffi, Andrew Trickett, and Peter Moller. And then, of course, as you work your way down into 21st position, Andrew Rasmussen, along with Joseph Karsk, Kevin Berquist, Drew DeWeese, Sean Mulholland, Devin Brock, Dale Peterson, Waldo Walden, Colin McKenty, and William Fenton. That was remarkably still all cars scored on the leading lap. You go down to 31st position where you find the likes of Chet Miller, Brian Hotham, Robert Jeffrey, Steve Bammer, Ross Ortino. He's going to be slightly frustrated with how this one went. And then Neil Alexander, Alex Wright, Evan Mackay, David Morse, and then Christopher Perez. Just a handful more names. Ian Cabana 1 lap down, Nicholas Johnson 4 laps down, and then DNS for Travis Pruitt, Christopher Rhines, Luke Davis, Rodrigo Morales, Ryan Luna, all through the 47 drivers. Let's head down to our race winner, though, where we can catch up with Jeff Carollo. Jeff, talk to us about this one. Put it on pole position, but in a race like this, you're always thinking about the draft and how it was going to go. How nervous were you in the opening stages of the race?
I was more worried about just saving fuel. My teammate, Shreyas behind me, he had a good draft, so he was able to save some fuel, so it was kind of a struggle to keep the cars behind along with saving a lap or so of fuel if possible. I mean, did the best I can, but it seems like that worked out pretty well.
Seemed like it indeed. Talk to us a little bit about the way the season is going to play out. We started, of course, with Aragon. We're going to Hockenheim next. Charlotte, Suzuka in that first half. But this race, of course, everyone's got plenty of practice for. How good is it for you to come out on top in this particular race?
I felt pretty good. I came in really confident. Aragon last week, I want to totally forget that race even existed after the incidents that happened. But coming out and trying to put it on pole and take P1, I wanted to show I'm not no slouch. The rest of the season is going to be a challenge. There are still quick guys here. Felix Feliz, Jim Feliz, Thurman, Shreyas, Sortino, this goes on. There's a lot of pretty quick guys. Tyler Graf. It's going to be a tight season, I feel, and I got some points to make up. And but keep on this track, I should be pretty good.
Looking forward to seeing you in a week's time over at Hockenheim. Congratulations on the win, Jeff. Enjoy this one.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I want to thank my team, my girlfriend, my family, sponsor GTR Simulators, and you guys for putting on the broadcast.
So that was Jeff Carollo checking in with us from behind the sim rig. Let's head on over to Jared Keane, though, where 37 thousandths of a second the margin at the line. Jared, how nervous were you as you looked over at your timing screen and saw the result?
Oh, I knew I had it all along, no problem.
It seemed like at the end, Tyler Graf's just slightly closed as they stopped fighting so much behind. Talk to us about the race and the strategy in particular, where it was all about the call to come down pit lane that got you a very nice jump on track.
I tell you what helped me a ton. I knew my fuel. I knew that I could optimize pit entry. It's a really fast pit entry, and you can pick up a second or so there. And so I nailed it and got out, I guess, ahead of a couple guys. And I don't know how I would have gotten by those guys ahead of me because it's just so hard to pass here.
Even with that draft, I know that it was turned down a little bit, so it's interesting to hear you say that it's difficult to pass. How does that impact things heading into the iRacing Daytona 24? I'm very curious. This, of course, a really good preview for us to be able to see how the GT3s are going to play on out.
It's a strategy race. It really is, because even if you get a run, unless it's a massive run and you're getting literally a physical push, the leader can just tuck in and take the inside line, and it's really hard in turn 1 to go around on the outside.
Well, congratulations on second, Jared. Appreciate some of the thoughts as well, and we'll see you in a week's time over in Germany.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Jared Keane, second place, and again, 37 thousandths of a second over Tyler Groff. Tyler, 37 thousandths. Come on, you must have thought it was close.
Yeah, it was. That was pretty close. I wasn't really sure what to do. I hadn't really been in a position where I could get next to somebody at the start-finish line, more so for like turn 1. So, I kind of just drafted up and then kind of did what was safe and go on the apron just in case we decided to wad them up across the finish line. So,
seems like you've got some speed in these GT3 machines. How are you enjoying the transition into tin tops after competing a little bit more focused on open wheelers over the last handful of years?
I am having an absolute blast. This is honestly the way these races run, especially here, kind of reminds me of kart races that I used to run in, where you kind of have that breakaway pack of 5 or 6, and it's just kind of a chess match from there. It's really fun. Everyone's so close too. There's no one that's running away by 25 seconds, which is nice. So it's just fun to keep everybody close and have close finishes like this.
It was a fun race, enjoyed seeing it, and we're going to Hockenheim next time out. Maybe not so concerned about fuel. What do you think we're going to be looking for in that particular race?
I'm not really sure. I haven't done a lot of races there. I ran sports car last year there in the prototype and hated every moment of it. So I guess we'll see how the GT3 drives there. I mean, I've liked it everywhere. It's kind of like the Lotus 79, where just kind of anywhere you put it on a racetrack, it's gonna figure out a way to make you enjoy driving it. So I'm sure this time next week I'll know a little bit more, hopefully. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I just know I got to pound some laps there.
Well, congratulations on the podium. We'll see you in a week's time.
Thanks.
So Tyler Groff joins us in the broadcast booth, and we will very much, I think, be looking forward to this race at Hockenheim. It's a flat track. It's maybe lost a lot of its appeal, in my opinion, with some of the changes that the circuit has seen, but it does not mean that it is not a fun racetrack, especially in these GT3 cars, Ewan.
Yeah, still holds some of the same corners that it used to have, of course, but it takes on a little bit more of a modern look as to what this circuit should be. Still can provide some good racing, I think works well in GT3s, so will be one to look forward to again in 1 week's time.
And we'll take a look at the schedule as we wrap things up, of course, for these GT3 fixed drivers. After Hockenheim, we go to Charlotte. That's going to be a fascinating Roval, and then Suzuka, Mugello, Road Atlanta, Okayama, and then Mount Panorama as the season finale. Didn't really talk about it too much tonight, Ewan, because we're still early doors in the championship, yes, but of course the fun thing about PRL competitions is 9 rounds of the championship, you're allowed to drop 1 round of the championship. It can't be the last one, though. You have to, if you're in a championship fight, show up and be ready to deliver the result.
Yeah, Bathurst is going to be a very nerve-wracking one for whoever is in the championship lead, because with this round that's been knocked off, if you like, normally 10 rounds in the PRL, 9 this time around, with the fact that we've got 1 less than normal, this kind of means that the chances of it going to the final race is even more likely, and the fact that, you know, that you can't drop your last round means that it is quite likely we have a championship finale where maybe a few drivers are involved, and there'll be some very anxious faces starting that race in the end of February.
Oh, can you imagine qualifying at the back at Mount Panorama and being in a championship fight? No, thank you would be my response to that. But we will make our way back to the World Center of Racing with minds focused on 40 minutes of GT3 racing, and this time with open setups to boot as well. How will drivers make use of the ability to dial in the amount of downforce they want in the second round of the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series in 2024. We've just heard from some of the drivers in the Sprint Series, Fixed Series, excuse me, about how difficult it can be to overtake. Could you make your life easier by ripping off the downforce, but then being a bit of a snail in a rock in that infield? It's the balance that drivers have to find out. They still have the same schedule with which to work, so no real surprises there, and so we will blitz through the schedule and jump on over to the championship standings as they run right now. Again, it is basically as they finished a week ago, but it's SimCity Racing 1, 2, 3, and 4 with Chris Peets, Brandon Tabone, Dalton Zavadil, and Martin Crisp leading in front of Vincent Trepanier.
Yeah, what a fantastic opening round of the season it was for SimCity Racing, who will hold the first 2 places in the Teams Championship as well, of course, after mobbing the first 4 places in that opening round of the season. The interesting thing to me here was the fact that most of these drivers you can see on your screen were driving Porsches. In fact, 8 of them. Only Christian Chalanier and Gabriel Mendonca were not driving the Porsche in that opening round of the season. In the Fixed Series, we actually saw more variation in the opening round, whereas based on what we just saw, there were very few non-Porsches inside the top 10. I wonder whether we're going to get an all-Porsche top 10 in the Sprint Series as a result of, based on what we saw last week and sort of balancing that against what we've just seen in the Fixed Series.
Well, a preview, I can tell you in qualifying that right now there's an Audi in 10th position, but outside of that, it's Porsche domination. You mentioned that for SimCity Racing, 1, 2, 3, 4 means they're probably looking quite good in the team championship as well, and, well, you'd be right. 5-point split SimCity Racing 1 and 2. If you're curious, the order to which they finished: Chris Peets, SimCity Racing 1, Brandon Tabone, SimCity Racing 2, Dalton Zavadil, SimCity Racing 1, Martin Crisp, SimCity Racing 2. It's almost like they did that in synchronicity, and then Blue Chip Racing and Advanced Motorsports slightly further behind with the margins as they build right now, but we're still very, very early stages in these points. Let's be honest, there's not much that you can really read into it. It's all going to be about how we move on forward from here, how drivers make their name known, especially in some of these qualifying sessions. And speaking of which, we've got about 6 minutes left to go in this one, and right now Vincent Trepanier sits on top with a 1:43.447, Abner Acosta second, and then Jimmy Libre, real-world driver who competes in a Porsche, third. The margins through the field, though, may be slightly bigger than what we saw in the GT3 Fixed Series.
A little bit bigger. Top 10 covers the first half a second. It's about top 15, 16 that was covered by half a second in the Fixed Series, and I guess that's sort of to be expected, isn't it, really, with some bigger gaps here, because that's kind of what the Fixed Series is designed to do, keep people a little bit closer, and it's just basically down to the cars that are the differences in that one, and of course the drivers who are taking part in them that are sort of making the differences in that series. A little bit different here in the Sprint Series. You can see a few more bigger gaps. The worrying thing, by the way, with regards to the teams as well, just to add to that point, is the fact that SimCity Racing 2, for example, had an insurance policy of Jason Allen finishing in 9th place as well, so they were very, very strong, whereas the others in the field, the likes of Advanced Motorsports, one of which you're seeing on your screen right now, Vincent Trepanier, they were not so much up towards the front of the field in the last race. He was the best of them, of course, Trepanier in 5th position, and got a lot of work to do for the remainder.
Vincent Trepanier, of course, technically could have been our 2023 Season 3 champion, but decided in the closing stages to give the championship back to Karl Modoff after there was contact. Modoff was leading, came across some lap traffic, and it came unstuck, but very, very competitive in those Advanced Motorsports colours. Going to be curious to see how he's playing with his teammate behind, because I think right now he's towing around one of the other Advanced Motorsports cars, Simon Theriault, and so surely has already been given the tow by his teammate in the past, and so as Theriault jumps up into 5th position, now the favour will be returned, surely. Trepanier will be the one given the draft, and an opportunity for him to find even more time.
Well, yes, in theory, but it was that done in the first run, and Trepanier sort of had his go, and they're going to keep it this way now for the second run, or are they going to switch? It looks like they are going to get switched here. They seem to be getting a bit closer to one another, and thankfully for them, they've managed to get rid of anyone behind them sort of benefiting from their games. I know there's one of the Fords just in behind, trying to benefit, maybe just running where they are running, to be honest. That's Ethan Bass, of course, trying to latch on to the back of them. But,
I like how you said, of course.
Can't do it, yeah.
Everyone knows if there's a Ford, it's probably Ethan Bass, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know anyone else who drives it.
No one else is crazy enough. Here comes Jimmy Libre to the line. 74 machine had effectively the same time as Abner Acosta. You can see that on the left-hand side. Let me break out the pen just to reiterate it, because it can be a little bit confusing. But let me get it there. They're the same.
Yes. Oh, good writing there. Nice. That's a straight. I'd take issue with the way you form some of those letters, but anyway.
It's harder than it looks, I promise you.
It's not how you'd write with a pen in your hand, I hope.
Nope, it's not. It's a mouse.
No, I didn't think you had a touch screen or whatever. But anyway.
Ideas for the future.
I don't know how that would work, but anyway, that is a speculative future one. Vincent Trepanier then is in the pit lane and finished for the session, I would imagine, with 2 minutes to go. I don't think Abner Acosta is going to be able to beat him on this lap unless he's sort of setting himself up for one more.
I think you're right that Trepanier and Theriault are probably both done for the session. Martin Crisp does not find any improvement, but Mr. Z does. Dalton Zavadil jumps up into 4th, and that's going to be ideal for him. There actually is going Vincent Trepanier back out onto track, so he will get an opportunity to go, and his teammates directly behind him.
Yeah, so Theriault in the same position again here. Surely they're going to reverse that before they start this next lap, but they just haven't had time. They're a bit of a rush, of course. They haven't left a whole load of time for them to sort this out, but then again, I can't really see anybody beating Trepanier's time at the moment. Jimmy Libre is coming up towards the line, but I don't think this is going to be an improvement. Let's see. No.
2022 Porsche Sprint Challenge North America champion, I think, was maybe giving the toe to the 26 machine behind. Fernando Yaquez did not find any improvement, but out of nowhere, off of the top rope, RKO. It's the Precision Racing Esports driver Daniel Krachowski that finds his way to pole position.
You have been watching a lot of WWE recently.
I have.
Me. That was straight from the commentator's book of someone else. Anyway, yeah, it's a good time. 10th and a half. I got to say, I didn't see that coming. 10th and a half better than Trepanier is pretty impressive. But as we saw, there will be one more chance. And these two are not teammates, but they've been annoying each other and helping each other in equal measure for the last 5 minutes or so.
iRacing's own Christian Challenger finds the 10th and a half, jumps him up to 15th position as Ethan Bass lets the Ferrari go on through. I think now we are at that point, though, where basically I don't think there are many drivers that are going to get back to the line in time. Here comes Cameron Keeley. He's got behind him the 957 of Martin Crisp. He's got the, of course, red highlights on the SimCity Racing car, making it as easy as possible to identify the machines. But 10 seconds left on the clock. Kwok Nin in the Audi, the final car that will see the line in the nick of time. And so Kevin Simpson in the Porsche sees the checkered flag, and from 19th finds no improvement. Where will the rest stack on up?
Well, Kwoknin actually lifted off there just after the line, so he won't be the last over the line, I don't think. Zoltan Zavadil of SimCity Racing is not going to improve with this. That looks more like an outlap than anything. Jimmy Lieber's been handing out the slipstream on this occasion. Has he helped his teammate get into the top positions? Sort of, but no big gains so far.
So Yaquez, best he could get up to was 12th, as Dimitri Sosno in the BMW, the number 31, is next through NASCAR's 3 and 4. I see Christian Challenger still on a lap behind him. Not sure if there's anyone else that's going to improve, and so as the 31 practices the crucial pit stop entry, and as we've learned from the GT3 fixed race, if you missed that, well, you don't have to just watch about the pit entry. You need to be careful on pit lane itself. We didn't get a chance to go see the moment down on pit lane that saw contact made between some lapped machines, but as Christian Challenger dives on towards the lane, I get the sense that's qualifying done and dusted.
I think so. Far less improvement. Oh, maybe Trepanier's got something to say here. No, he's giving the slipstream to his teammate Tyrrell, so it's going to be 7th for him and no improvement for Vincent Trepanier. 4 tenths down on his previous best as a result of not receiving the slipstream, and Daniel Krasowski's going to be getting the pole position.
That was an intriguing qualifying session, and very, very selfless of Vincent to give the draft to his teammate in the closing stages, given that he had just given the draft the previous run. Maybe that's the way it works between the team. Let's not forget in Formula 1, and there are some teams where legitimately it's just, well, one team at the start of the season, one driver goes first, the next race the other driver goes first, and back and forth, and well, if you get to a track where you're the one giving the draft and you need it, tough.
Exactly. As I was going to say, that might have been part of sort of a pre-planned routine that they were going to go for, and it would be wrong to go away from that, especially because Tyrrell himself didn't actually have that bad of a chance of getting into the top 5, top couple of rows himself. He's only qualified 7th, but, he wouldn't have had to make a huge improvement to get onto row 2.
So we saw, how soon did the breakaway come in that first race? I'm just trying to remember today.
Which one?
Well, the Fix Series race.
No,
you say which breakaway?
Race.
I meant the main breakaway that really built. Second lap?
It was very quick. I mean, I started to see sort of you could go back, if you go back now with hindsight, you could see the reason why on the opening chicane, the opening corner, to be honest, because the top 7 or 8 were single file and the rest weren't.
That is true.
But that's with hindsight, so it's...
Hindsight is a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so you could. It's easy to look back now and say that. I would say it's pretty hopeless if you've qualified outside the top 10, and you can't be mad if you're not in the front group, because you've sort of made your bed at that point. There's just not enough time to gain the time that you need to in this race.
Let's go down and take a look at the starting grid then, where Daniel Kotrovsky in the Precision Racing Esports number 37 will be the one to see the green. Vincent Trepanier alongside with Abner Acosta in 3rd position, and then Jimmy Libre in 4th. You got Dalton Zavadil, Brandon Tabone, the pair of SimCity racing cars as they'll look to work their way on forward in the field. Simon Theriault lines up back in 7th spot with Chris Beats alongside Boris Ovando, and then Arnaud Genet, the lead driver steward at the Precision Racing League, is in 10th, with Jason Allen, of course, as you had mentioned, the 3rd horse in the SimCity Racing 2 camp, but starting up in 11th alongside Fernando Yaquez. 13th goes the way of Elliot White, with Adrian Kokolas to his outside. Christian Challen and David Mendoza, Martin Crisp, and then Thomas Dunn make up the top 18, with Kevin Simpson and Ethan Bast on the edge of the top 20. It will be Jeremy Littleland and then JP Alfonso 21st and 22nd. Jerome Bertiome joins us for the first time this season, with Miguel Angel Fonseca in what is a distinctive livery that saw some success on Friday night primetime on the streets of Long Beach on RaceSpotTV. Kwok Nin, Marc-Andre Desjardins, Sammy Hendricks, Gary Brown, and then Cameron Keeley and Miguel Ruiz through the top 30. And 2 more drivers, Dimitri Sosno and Carlos Acano, all drivers with times on the board in qualifying. Exactly what you want to see. A few less drivers giving us their webcams for today, but we can take a look at those getting ready to go. You've got Jerome Bertiome on the top left alongside Vincent Trepanier, and then Miguel Angel Fonseca and Kwok Nin below them. Apparently, Miguel Angel Fonseca has landed at Daytona and not only has learnt to play the guitar, but has also forgotten how to turn right.
He won, I don't know if you saw this, he won, I can't remember whether it was the Trucks or the Grand National Series now, which is really silly of me because they're not even similar, but he won one of them at Kentucky or Michigan, their opening round of their season, 1 week ago yesterday.
What is Vincent doing?
I don't know. I'm not really sure.
I'm glad that you weren't paying attention to the screen, is all I'll say. I'm still very confused by that.
I was trying to remember which race Fonseca won, but it was his first, one of his first over wins anyway, and he was very pleased, although his heart rate remained very low for someone who was about to win on the last lap of the race.
Sounds like the heart rate monitor's not quite accurate. Anyway, pace car's off and away. If you're left in control of Daniel Kotrovsky in the Precision Racing Esports number 37. We've got 32 GT3 cars locked and loaded, and for 40 minutes of racing, the GT3 Sprint Series is underway at the Daytona International Speedway. Off of the banking, Vincent Trepanier slots back into 2nd, instantly single file, as Jimmy Libre gets in front of Abner Acosta, who's ping-ponged off of some of the other cars and is into the wall. A little bit of a checkup. He's still trying to turn himself around, but 31 other drivers through with no major drama.
Oh, there's drama there, though. Down the inside for about 7th or 8th position in the train. That was a big commitment made by one of the Porsches, of course, up inside the top 10. And thankfully they got through cleanly, but they very nearly all broke so late that they clattered into the field ahead of them. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and we are single file for the most part inside the top 15. This is going to be a bigger group than we saw the last race.
It was Christian Challoner that I think was in amongst the first side-by-side battles with JP Alfonso in front of them. Ethan Bass and Thomas Dunn also side-by-side. As we come back onto the banking, you've got now almost the entirety of the 2.5 miles of the Daytona International Oval with which to run. Already a bit of a stretch out at the front as the Precision Racing Esports Porsche leads by about 4/10 as we get ready to slam onto the brakes and through that bus stop chicane for the first time of asking. You get that shot through the field of the drivers coming down through this on this opening lap. There really isn't too much separation building through them yet.
Absolutely nothing for the moment. There's a small gap between 6th and 7th and Tabone and Genet, but not too much there. Maybe that's something that could open a bit further in the next couple of laps, because as soon as they get onto the banking, you can see the field gets very stretched immediately because of the higher speeds, and now you can see the group form. It looks like it's going to be 6 only. Genet is going to struggle to get there along with the others. He's being pushed from behind, but Boris Ovando is going for a move instead of helping him along.
Simon Terrier's not going to be the one going for it. At the later portion of the corner, releases the brake. Genet loses 2 for the price of 1. Maybe recognizing that gap up front was the more important thing. Didn't want to cause more consternation amongst the drivers. Let's go back, though, to the opening corner where previous champion in 2023, Abner Acosta, runs his way through the corner. And there is a bit of contact with Chris Libre's left rear. But then this is the heads-up driving from Acosta, seeing the field come through, and then finally spinning it around.
Yeah, the fear was there for him that he was going to get squeezed into the inside wall. That's why he just moved himself to the right ever so slightly more than he needed to. Although, I say more than he needed to, he probably needed to avoid the wall on the left as well. So he was sort of playing the numbers game there, thinking, well, if I'm going to hit anything, I better hit the car, because I'm definitely not going to come off better if I hit the wall. I might come off better if I hit the car. Unfortunately, he didn't come off better anyway, and he's sent right back to the rear end of the field. Difficult to know whether Libre was at fault for squeezing him too much or not, because it's a very fine margin you're playing with down there.
One thing just to remember, though, is Abner Acosta's already up to 31st. He's only 13 seconds off for the lead, and basically in the one long drafting queue that we see building up once again. I have the feeling that fuel saving a little bit more important. Let's jump on board with Chris Beets, who's already up 5 positions so far in this race, and just see how he's going to play this as they run their way back towards the stripe, getting ready to see the second lap in the books. He's not even up towards the top of the rev range, and so as they cross the stripe, there's the liftoff of the throttle. Major fuel games going on.
Nobody is pushing there, and Chris Beets set the fastest lap briefly. Boris Ovando now does that, probably down to his big move down the inside of Theriault. It was in towards turn 1, and on Genet, of course, who is now behind him, but it is a long group. Some moves being made, though. The concertina effect gets so strong towards the back of the group that some of them are almost forced to go for it.
I think that's kind of what's happening. You see behind Ethan Bass, Thomas Dunn and Adrian Kokolas are going to be side by side through the kink, and I don't like that, I'll be honest, as a driver. Christian Challoner says I can join the fun and squeak my way up the inside. Alfonso's watching from behind in the Audi, the first time we've seen him in 2024, and as Kokolas loses 1, still alongside with Challoner, and so I think recognizes that he needs to just get to the apex of the corner that little bit earlier, gets a tidal line onto the banking, and now Challoner going to be hung out to dry as they run their way through NASCAR Turn 1.
But unfortunately, if you end up on the high side here, you're going to be in big trouble as far as holding on to places goes, and Challoner knows that. He thinks, well, I better off just take the benefit you get from the banking, and slots into line as a result as the drivers make their way through the bus stop again. This is staying a lot closer than the previous race.
Oh, but we got an issue going around with Adrian Kokolas. His Porsche fortunately stricken on the outside of the bus stop. He's going to see the field slide on through, but I think what that has done, you can kind of see it on the banking. Couple of cars losing out and having to now lose momentum. Christian Challoner leads the second pack as it runs right now, 1.5 seconds in front to hold on to that draft. Who's going to be brave behind him? Here comes Martin Crisp in that SimCity racing car looking to the outside.
Yeah, Challoner had to slow immediately there for the Porsche that was spinning in front, and so it's created this group which has made contact, and everyone's weaving all over the place to avoid each other. Oh, and they haven't. One of the Ferraris, goes around. It's Jeremy Littleton who's got around, and it will be outside the top 30 before he knows it as well.
And that is, I think, the storm that was brewing with the amount of concertina that we were seeing through the field. Back over to the replay. Let's take a look at this into the bus stop chicane.
So how does the Porsche end up going around? It's the Audi down the inside. And it's just trying to get it. It's just that better run through the second part of the bus stop that's really put the Porsche straight into the car ahead. And you're going to come off second best in that. And it's created a big group behind. You can see how it's happened here because the Audi's obviously compromised on the way in.
On board with Martin Chris. You can just see in front how much Christian Challoner had to check up as well. So then Miguel Angel Fonseca goes up high. Then Little Tin's the one that tries to run the outside line to get past the SimCity racing car. This is some heads-up driving that sometimes you do need. It's a type of race that, let's be honest, you only really do once a year when you come here to Daytona.
Yeah, maybe twice if you're lucky, but it's a very rare occasion that you're doing this kind of racing. It takes a very special kind of racecraft to negotiate it, as we've already talked about. Some people, of course, falling afoul of that. I reckon Challoner might have made contact with the Porsche as it spun around, by the way. I know he had to brake and slow down for it anyway, but I reckon he might have just swagged it on the way past there, which can't be helping him in terms of straight line speed, as we've got the top group coming into turn one again. These guys, even at the front of the field, are almost experiencing the concertina effect that's almost forcing them to make moves now.
Yeah, but they're all just saving fuel. We were riding on board. We heard that from them earlier, let's not forget. So that is definitely something that they are all keeping in mind. When it comes to fuel windows here, given that we saw drivers in as early as 18 minutes left to go in the GT3 fixed race with the slightly longer race distance, but the appropriately larger fuel tank restriction that we have as well, so the drivers are allowed a little bit more fuel. Probably not far away in terms of that number being the same. So 18 minutes left on the clock, 10 minutes left to go. That's around the window where we'd expect to see the drivers come on in. The problem is going to be where with the fixed series we had the big breaks happening, and so we saw drivers at the front coming in and being deposited into traffic. And today, with how the field's stretching out so far, yes, there's a bit of a gap brewing between Challoner and those in front, but there's not going to be that same level of traffic that the drivers have to worry about.
Not quite. We do have less drivers in the field, but it just kind of depends how it stretches out over the next 10 minutes or so. I do wonder whether it is going to be a factor or not here. I mean, in this race, I do get the feeling that there's going to be a little bit less variation, actually, in terms of when drivers will come in. During the fixed race, it seemed like people were coming in sort of when they liked, in that little pit window that there was, which didn't contain many laps, of course, but there was a few. And I feel like that everyone may well be coming in together here, especially from the front group in the sprint series, and that kind of negates whether there's traffic or not. It kind of doesn't matter if there's traffic or not if everyone does it together, because they're sort of both affected in the same way.
As we look inside the room of Vincent Trepanier, looks very dark. He's got the tongue going, as all good sim racers tend to do. And there you can see it going even on corner exit right now. What is it about tongue movements and sim races, Ewan? There is just something about it, isn't there?
Well, it's not always just sim races, is it? It's people sometimes just do it when they're concentrating on anything, and it's. I don't do it personally, so I find it a bit odd.
Shall we go and see if anyone else is doing anything with their facial expressions? Let's check in with the man behind the Precision Racing League, Jerome Bertillon. Great to see him, by the way, in the field. Not often that we get to see him driving. He's too often forced to do a lot of the administrative things as well. He's jumped into the Porsche. He looks like he's a little bit pensive right now.
He's missed that apex, but I won't mention it. He seems to be doing okay. Pulls a bit of an expression there, as if to acknowledge what just happened, but it looks like he's struggling to stay awake. What's he moving his eyes around so much for? Anyway,
he's got 3 monitors, Ewan, so maybe there's just so much information coming in. I don't know.
That's true. There's can't see what he's doing with his eyes, but I can only assume he's looking forwards because he's in VR. Must be a strange look. Oh, I know we don't have an over-the-shoulder camera for him, but it must be a strange look.
He's got someone behind him.
Oh, has he?
You can just about see someone moving. It's okay. That might be a kitchen behind him. No. There is. He might be in the living room right now. That is very distracting, I've got to say. Kudos.
Oh, there is someone right behind.
Yeah.
Have they just opened the fridge?
That is 100% a kitchen over his shoulder.
Why on earth is it in the kitchen?
There have been weird things. Here's a look at Miguel Angel Fonseca, by the way, who has already, again, still forgotten how to turn right as he turns right.
He's doing it there. So he's okay. I'm glad his message actually fits the screen this week. Because,
Good point, yes.
I don't think it did. Oh, well, it basically does. Without our graphic there, it does. So that's okay. But, yeah, either you're right, his heart rate monitor is wrong, or it's just he has a low heart rate.
He's got an athlete heart rate is what's happening. And just if you
Is
need
he an athlete?
It's a good question. Is he an athlete? If you need a helpful guide, by the way, this way is right, this way is left.
I'd laugh if you got that wrong. But that would have been embarrassing.
So we're going right now, and we're going left now, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh no! Oh, someone's going right when they should have gone left, and Fonseca is laughing about it. That's not very nice, but he is. And that's Kevin Simpson into the wall.
It was indeed, unfortunately, in the Porsche. Then 606 has found some trouble, and as we check back in with your leaders, look behind, as that's a look around the outside for Dalton Zavadil.
Oh!
Spin for Boris Ovando, and Brandon Tabone got mixed up as well. There's chaos building once more.
There is. They're both stuck on the outside of the racetrack as well, in towards turn one there. The whole field is going to go by them because there isn't exactly big gaps in there anywhere. Abner Acosta still only 16 seconds off the field, by the way, or off the front, I should say. I just caught a glimpse of there. He's climbing nearly inside the top 20, and that will help drivers like him.
So, this is what happened on the exit of the chicane. It's just the weight had already transferred, and he didn't even wait to hit the wall. He was already out of dodge before things came unstuck. Let's go take a look at the replay. The Boris Ovando dives down to the inside into turn one.
When you dive down that much, the transfer from the apron to the actual racetrack, or the infield of the racetrack, is a little bit bigger than it is usually. And just to make matters worse, he boxes in the 222 in the wall as well. Not that he could have gone anywhere anyway, but he won't be very pleased about that. Completely taken out. Look at the shallow line he takes. He was going straight back onto the outside racing line there, and I've got to say he can't point the finger anywhere else but himself there.
Yeah, no, I'm agreed with you. I think Arnaud Genet is going to have a pretty easy case when he looks through that incident. And if you're wondering, by the way, if Arnaud gets in any incidents in this race, well, there are other stewards to take a look at that. He's in 7th position right now, 3 positions up from where he started. David Mendoza's up 6. Ethan Bass in that Ford. That infernal Ford that just refuses to die is up 9 positions. JP Alfonso's plus 8, and of course you got some big losers as well. Let's not forget though, but the next time a Ford is racing at Daytona in the real world, Ewan, it's not going to be this infernal Ford that we still have on iRacing that has yet to be put out to the pastures. Instead, we get a brand new Ford Mustang GTD to enjoy.
Yeah, that is going to be good. I do prefer this Ford, if I'm honest with you.
Don't. No. I will kick you out of the commentary booth faster than you can say Ford GT.
So, wow, that's quick as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's just true. What's an infernal Ford, by the way? Or do you mean an eternal?
No. Infernal.
Infernal?
What's the definition
On fire?
of that? No. Irritating and tiresome used for emphasis is the informal dictionary Oxford language definition.
It's none of those things.
It is
it's
very
great.
infernal. No. Infernal.
No, it's great.
Andrew Carone, champion from last season, calls it the Fjord because it's so good at wading through situations because it's such a boat of a car.
Oh, I thought he was calling it a fjord because it's older than a fjord.
Oh, that is also a good one. That's not bad.
Which it probably is at this stage. There's got to be a younger fjord.
It's a fake Ford as well. Anyway, we're getting off topic. I don't really hate the Ford, just to be clear.
Hate him. Social media.
You know the thing that I really don't like, though? This car is so old. You know what that is, right?
That's what it. Right, it's absolutely fantastic, by the way.
It's the only GT3 car left at iRacing that you need to take your hands off the wheel to actually shift the car.
I mean, that is great. I mean, if we're having this, though, why don't we have the BMW Z4 is my question.
That's a
But
good
anyway.
point. If we have this, let's have that as well, because that is a much better car. Dalton Zavadil's charging forward, so are a handful of other machines behind Ethan Bass. No one going for the move just yet as Elliott White releases the pressure momentarily. Jimmy Libre is down into 5th as Dalton Zavadil's up to 4th.
Yep, it's a group of 6 at the front of the field, pretty similar to what we saw in the fixed race, but I've got to say, very much calmer than what we saw in the fixed race. We don't have anyone sort of animating the group, anyone making moves here. I mean, if we were to sort of substitute this race, or the last race into this one, Chris Beach will be making moves on Vincent Trapanier, for example, and it would all be a bit of a mess, and the leader would get away. That's not happening here. Krasowski is going to really have to think about how he's going to save fuel to get on terms with these guys, because they've been following him for nearly 20 minutes now.
And I do get the sense that behind, you've still got Jason Allen, Arnaud Genet, Fernando Yaquez, and David Mendoza, who are about 0.3 of a second out of drafting range. All they need to do is find 0.3, and suddenly 6 could become 10, right as we get ready to see the cars down onto the pit lane as well, because we are almost halfway through this one. Andrew Carone loves our idea to bring back the Z4. That is the correct way to say it, by the way. It's not the Z4, Z4.
Yeah, it's a German company, so I'm going with Z4.
Good point, actually, yeah.
That's what we should. That's what we should base it on. Daniel Ferguson describing the Ford GT as a trampoline, which is interesting as well.
Well, that implies that there's actually suspension. So, I mean, there is suspension, but it is very rudimentary, so I'm not quite sure. I think we need to come up with another description for that. Trampoline on
Pogo
steroids.
stick.
Pogo stick is actually perfect for it. Yes, there you go.
It's a four-legged pogo stick, if you like. Although that would be inherently easier, I would argue.
It would.
Anyway, we're so off topic. The top 6 are still together. They're just following each other, though, which is kind of the problem.
It's fuel saving right now.
It is.
It's what we're going to have to do for 24 hours at Daytona, Ewan. I hope you're ready for that.
No, it's not going to be quite like that. Because not even Spa was like that for eventually.
GTDs can no longer do an hour, can they, on fuel at Daytona?
Maybe not. Well,
so there will be some strategy, but don't quote me on that, because I'm wrong most of the time.
It's hard to define a proper strategy for 24 hours, set in stone, that kind of thing. I know Top Split is very competitive these days, and you can't really factor in the eventual race winner having almost any kind of problem these days, but even so, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a Porsche Cup class for this day.
Well,
other than the manufacturer deals, of course.
All I'm going to say is IMSA Esports, we did have a bit of a Ferrari-Mercedes showdown at the front, and Lamborghini was in the mix. Porsche's qualified well as well. So, I don't know. I feel like we will hopefully be in for some fun, but special events do tend to be a bit of a one-class spec at the end of the day. I am just somewhat hoping that we end up in a situation with the Daytona 24 that everyone enjoys themselves. No matter what split you're in, every race matters, so I hope that people enjoy what is going to be the biggest sim race of the year. Especially given that I think last year we had, 16,000 drivers. That's a look around the outside again. Dalton Zavadil, this time on his teammate Chris Beats, and team communication there. Maybe Chris telling him, beat off for the time being. Let me hold on to 3rd.
Probably a sensible choice as well, really, to stay where you are. I mean, in some ways as well, it could be just a bit of a almost side-by-side to sort of protect their places, if you like. If they're going side-by-side, then no one can overtake them, I suppose. But that only works for a period of time. They've sorted themselves out again now. They're back in the group. And the other thing as well is they're not really letting these guys from 7th on back catch up. They are doing slightly, but they will be burning fuel in the process, and that's only for the sort of chance to be back in the leading group again. I'd imagine when the pit stops are all around, they won't be anywhere near it again.
Like you say, you are right now in the situation where Jason Allen's probably burning a bit more fuel just to catch, but if you're Arnaud Genet, you might be in a situation where you can save a bit of fuel, and once you get to the spot where you're in the draft of those in front, maybe it's on Genet to then bridge the gap at some point and close up forward to give himself a little bit better track positioning in that 312 machine. Not just a huge group here, by the way. You go back to Christian Challoner in the number 78, best number in the whole of motorsport, whole of sim racing, whole of the world, if we're being honest. Still got Martin Chris, Miguel Fonseca, and Marc-Andre Desjardins behind, but Quoknin, Abner Acosta, and Jerome Bertiome in the fray as well. And let's just reiterate, Abner Acosta is still only 14 seconds off of the lead after spinning at the opening corner.
Yeah, no, and when I checked back and he was in 21st, he was only 16 seconds off, so he's actually caught up a bit, which is really remarkable. And it just does make you wonder. I mean, we'd have a 7-car leading group, in my opinion, if he hadn't spun on the opening lap. I think I'm pretty confident in that, because he's clearly got the speed to be up there with the leading 7. He would be saving fuel a bit more, of course, if he was up there with them. And maybe he's having a bit more fun having to work his way through the field, but he's certainly not going to get a better result. Oh, that is... Oh, and huge contact with the wall for the 206 after being swiped, well, not swiped, but rather rear-ended. Marc-Andre Desjardins it was, who's been spun straight into the wall and hits the sort of pit exit wall here at Daytona.
Miguel Angel Fonseca also got tangled up and needed to take the tow as a result of it, because you can see there, oh, just so unfortunate. It was minding his P's and Q's, and unfortunately just luck wasn't on his side.
Yeah, but Fonseca didn't hit him. I was sure Fonseca hit him there. I was absolutely convinced.
Fonseca's the one that got hit, sorry. You mean JP Alfonso?
Do I? Okay. Sorry about that. I'm getting my... right.
Goodness,
oh, dear
man.
me. That's a... Well, I'm glad it's not real life, really. Put it that way.
That was horrific, wasn't that? That
was really quite a collision. Dear, oh dear. A very bad collision indeed. So... Yeah, what can you do as well if you're driving the Audi at this point? There's the Porsche. It's completely lost it by itself and goes straight into the side, or into the back of us here, sorry. And, yeah, as I say, that was a big bit of contact, heavy contact with the wall, the car, and thankfully only 2 cars involved.
Are we going to see drivers onto pit lane this time by with 17 minutes to go? No, it is still those at the front that stay out there. Jason Allen now dropping back slightly in the purple highlighted SimCity Racing car as Shanae Yaquez Mendoza tucks in behind. Ethan Bass in the 3rd of the groups out on track, as it seems like Kwoknin the only driver to come down pit lane as Elliott White runs behind the number 52 machine. Is there a bit of damage on the side of the Audi? No, it's just my eyes deceiving me, but that is one thing that you do at a track like this where aerodynamics are so important. A clean car is a fast car.
Yeah, I think you'd see damage a bit more obviously on that car anyway, to be fair, given its bright nature. But it's unfortunately one of the Audis, and so it is going to struggle around here. These two are actually fighting for the best, along with David Mendonca, who's a couple of seconds up the road, the best non-Porsche. It's currently top 9 all Porsches at the moment, and as you can see, these two fighting for this final spot outside of the top 10, making their way out onto the oval all over again. But thankfully, no damage on any of these cars, and so that is the name of the game around here at Daytona. It really does affect you in terms of what you can achieve in the race if you're held back by damage.
Well, no surprise, I think, to hear that Miguel Fonseca is retired from the race. He joins Brandon Tabone, Kevin Simpson, and Marc-Andre Desjardins in being done for the day. Kwoknin and Cameron Keeley, the only 2 drivers to have come down for a scheduled pit stop. Carlos Acano had to come in for seemingly a bit of damage repair as well. 16 minutes now left to go. We have officially had 13 laps complete. Will become 14 this time by, and no one in the leading groups diving down to the pit road just yet. The thing that we expect, though, is, of course, will be the leader that comes in first. Fernando Yaquez comes in from 9th position. But if you are that Precision Racing Esports driver up front, I really do have to wonder, how worried are you about the pit stop times of those behind?
Well, maybe not that worried now, because he's already done 25 minutes, which is a bit further than I thought he would go initially anyway. I thought he'd have to come in around about now, and he'd be on his own, allowing these guys to pass him. But I think he knows that nobody wants to overtake him, so he's thought, well, I can absolutely take the mick with the amount of fuel saving I'm doing. And I think he has been doing, to be honest. We've been on board a couple of times, especially in towards turn 1, and you've heard drivers in the pack, especially guys like Zavadil and Libra, really lifting off for a long time before the braking zone of turn 1, and clearly that's come right from Krasowski. He's clearly been lifting off very early on, saving a lot of fuel, knowing that no one wants to pass him. He can almost do what he likes with the throttle. He doesn't even have to press it on the straights at this rate.
Yeah, they're definitely not the fast lap times that you'd maybe expect from drivers pushing 10 tenths out there, but It's that game of trying to save enough fuel while still going fast enough such that you're not being closed in by those behind. Jason Allen is now within a second, I can tell you, of Simon Terrio just behind. So draft not completely a factor just yet, but getting closer and closer to, again, almost 10 cars being part of that pack. Fernando Yaquez has already made his trip down to pit lane, and when one goes down to pit lane, a couple more maybe will think about it, and here we come. Your leader continues to run, but coming in, it's going to be Dalton Zavadil, Jimmy Libre, and Simon Terrio trying to make sure they don't trip over one another in the search of their box.
I mean, that seemed to me as if they were very close to speeding. It looked like they were still slowing down after the line to me there, but anyway, they've probably judged it just about right. They probably know exactly how much speeding they can get away with before getting a penalty, which is cheeky, but in the rules, so it's fine. And they will now be pitting for as short a time as possible, and Zoltan Zavadil has nailed that.
It's a 10.8 second pit stop for him, 11.8 for Jimmy Libre, just to showcase how different the pit stop times were there. Don't forget that you can be above the limit when you hit the pit lane. There's the average speed calculator that you then have to slow down underneath, and so sometimes that's why, especially here at Daytona, you see drivers going really slow and then speeding back up on the initial entry into pit lane. The gap between Libre and Zavadil going to be 1.5 seconds, so draft at its minimum between the two of them as they now try and wait to see where the 4 drivers that stayed out an additional lap, Daniel Krachowski, Vincent Trepanier, and Chris Beats, along with Elliott White, who's about 6 seconds back, will end up being on pit lane. If it was 10.8 seconds stationary for Dalton Zavadil, who was looking aggressive, you can only imagine how quick it will be for the likes of Trepanier and Beats.
Yeah, surely they're all going to be onto pit lane here, and you can see with Krasowski, this is a push lap now. The first time we've seen all day. They clearly don't need to save any more fuel to make it another lap. They can go for it, and they have been doing. You can see that with the stretched out gaps. Now onto the brakes they go. They've all nailed it as well. They've clearly practiced it, because it's an art form that's often forgotten about when you're practicing for a race.
And especially practicing on the low fuel conditions with worn tires, that's where sometimes those subtle differences really play their part. So there's a look at Mr. Z, Dalton Zavadil, on the banking and already up to speed. Krasowski, Trepanier, Beats, and White have all hit their marks, and now we just wait for them to be released. Of course, we knew Trepanier would go first, and he will leapfrog the number 37. It was 9/10 quicker in the box. Beats unable to jump the car, but now as they wait to release themselves off the button for where those RFID tagging points are in the wheel wells, finally Trepanier will get back onto the power, and as Dalton Zavadil cycles back around, it will be to 4th position. Going long worked a treat.
It did. Going long has worked out much better than the undercuts, actually, from the likes of Dalton Zavadil, because even though he's come out first and he's broken the draft of Libre and Terrio, he's not really with the leaders here. Trepanier and Krasowski are ahead. Chris Beats third, he's there as well, but Zavadil not quite in touch.
So we have 11 minutes to go. Surely not going to be a brawl right from the drop of this second stint. There's going to be a build-up period where those up towards the front don't want to fight too hard initially, and then once it starts to settle into a few less cars being at the front, we'll know what's happening. There's the look at Trepanier. Suddenly, all the fun that he was having on the grid as we were watching him have his fun with the camera, the moments with the tongue, it's gone. It's replaced with the look of focus, the victory on the line.
It is. Has to nail this bus stop chicane every single time from here to the finish. It's going to be, well, I can't quite work out how many laps to go yet. It's going to be quite a few more, and probably far too many as far as Vincent Trepanier is concerned here in the race. It's going to be Daniel Krasowski. Krasowski is going to be immediately close to him. Is he going to lay the marker down and overtake straight away? Not quite, but he's going to get intimidatingly close.
And the act of going high on the banking as well somewhat forces Trepanier to be a little bit more defensive in the line that he runs through turn 1. So as Chris Beats closes up on the brakes once again, Dalton Zavadil and Jimmy Libre still trying to wrangle their way back up into contention. Elliott White has slid past Fernando Yaquez. Jason Allen, David Mendoza, you see them not too far away in front. There's so much chopping and changing going as that's the Bassmaster around as the Fords had a spill.
Oh, don't rejoin like that! And Ethan Bass has got no rear wing any longer, and he's got pretty heavy rear suspension damage as well. As was it Quagninia who rear-ended him there in the Audi? Oh, he's shedding body parts now too. What a shame for him, and a shame for Ethan Bass as well, who unfortunately rejoined there in a pretty unsafe manner.
And the Ford is down on pit lane. We'll take a look at the replay, but it's not a pleasant sight by any means. I think the question will really be how to initially begin. He's on the outside. He has Martin Crisp, I think, underneath him. And as they cycle through the corner, just the rear end steps around on him. The car rolls back initially. He thinks he's got a gap to go for it, but really there wasn't that opportunity. And Kwok Nin didn't have a chance to pick which side he wanted to go to.
It's a rare misjudgment, I've got to say, from Ethan Bass. You'd think with someone of that experience would be able to rejoin safely, but that car there it was almost as if the aerodynamics themselves were getting as old as the car, and they just gave out, and unfortunately he went around, and the rejoin really could do with some work. But as I mentioned, he or as you said, he thought he had a gap. You'd think he would know what kind of gap he would need to turn around it in that situation.
So the margin between these top three back to Dalton Zavadil is 2.5 seconds. It is very much now just down to those up at the front. Allen passes Mendoza for what is 8th position. They will fight for points. They will fight for what will be important points in the championship mix. But only one driver will come out on top in this one. And I get the feeling that Vincent Trepanier being out front is in a place he's very comfortable being.
I think so, but is that going to be the way to be on to the final lap? How are those games going to be played? Is Trepanier taking that position now so that Krasowski overtakes him eventually just before the end, and so there'll be one final lap for Trepanier to go back past again, or is he looking to hold the lead from here to the end? I'm not sure which way is the best one to play this, because last race we saw that being second in the group, I know it wasn't for the win, but second in the group didn't end up being the winning strategy.
So still have the 7 minutes to go. Not quite sure how many laps it will be. We take a look at the replay. Gary Brown. Oh, that's hellacious. The rear end got loose before they even unloaded off of the banking, and that Ferrari looking very, very worse for the wear, and I think that car done as well. So 32 started, 26 are left out there and running, all of whom are still on the leading lap. Still the variety of battle packs from which to keep our eyes on. Krachowski is going to close just to the bumper of Trepanier once again, but I don't think with what will be 6+ minutes left to go that it's time to fight just yet. 6+ minutes probably means, based on lap times of 1:44, four laps and counting?
Yeah, 4 laps. It will be. We do about 4 laps in 7 minutes around here, so we'll run out of time around the bus stop, I would imagine, and that will be the end of the race. So 4 to go. Are we going to watch another 3 laps of these three trailing each other like this before it kicks off on the last one? Surely Chris Beats is going to be the one who's particularly displeased about that.
They're knocking 7 bells out of each other here as Martin Crisp, Abner Acosta, and Christian Challoner. These are 3 very experienced drivers, and that's why you see them fanning out on the run in towards that international horseshoe. So much margin up front. The best they're hoping for is 13th position here. You've got 2 Porsches, and then Challoner flying the flag for the Ferrari.
Yeah, he is, but I think Crisp and Acosta, if we're, to make a judgment on their ability versus where they are in the field right now, I would say that they are out of position, and both of those drivers on another day could be well inside the top 10, so he's going to find this tricky, especially in the Ferrari versus a couple of Porsches in front. I think it will be between Crisp and Acosta for 13th place based on where they arguably should be in the field.
That Ferrari just seems to struggle onto the banking as well in terms of acceleration. Does not seem to be its forte, given how the balance of performance has equalized the cars here today, or rather maybe some people would argue has not equalized the car. Whatever they may claim though, Porsche, yes, running 1 through 8. You then have Audi 9 and 10 with Elliott White and David Mendoza slightly breaking up the monotony at the front. Jason Allen trying to charge his way on forward, and Arnaud Genet getting a bumper from behind and a helping hand across the line. You cycle over to the front though. There's been a change into turn 1. Trepanier past the 37 back to the lead.
And maybe Krasowski has decided that I'm not going to be able to get through before the line. I've had a few trial runs and Trepanier needed to be displaced there. He's now back at the front. Will Trepanier try to return serve on the next lap here? It's a bit of a game of cat and mouse at the moment, and one that is going to surely come down to the last lap.
So often in the BMW M Sim Cup and the BMW Sim GT Cup, we talked about how you wanted to be the driver in the draft coming to the line, and that played true for the likes of Gianni Vecchio 3 years in a row, winning at Daytona to kick off a calendar year. How will it play for these drivers? We saw and we heard from some of the drivers in the fixed series that it's difficult to make passes. It's not easy even with the draft on your side. 3.5 minutes will mean that this time at the line there will indeed be 3 laps to go, I do believe. Although, given that they're just getting into the bus stop chicane, they've probably still got about 25 seconds on the lap. No, that's still 3 laps, isn't that?
2 laps at the line, yeah. 2 laps at the line for this with 3 minutes.
No, you're right. Yes, 2 laps at the line.
Yep.
Never trust commentators' math.
Especially not yours.
I'm the one with the degree in computer science here, which, okay,
that's
yes, no,
true.
I see.
I don't have one at all.
No, you see, that's the problem. If I was smarter in math, I would have gone and done a degree in mathematics.
Oh, wow, that's, well, potentially not nice thought, but anyway. No overtake this time around. I thought Trepanier would return serve there, really, and go back through again. I thought they'd both decided at that point that actually I want to be leading on to the last lap, and obviously they can't both do that. So they may have reached an agreement now. Maybe Trepanier's happy to be second.
What I meant by that, by the way, is I did enough math in my computer science degree, and I didn't want to do any more of it, which would have been engineering or math. So I didn't mean anything bad by it. Based on how Trepanier kind of shaped up into turn 1, I think he's happy where he is. Does he maybe have a thought that the car behind has got a bit more downforce, and so he can get on through out of the bus stop? Ultimately, it's a bit of a gamble relying on your exit being better than the car in front and having enough speed to break the timing beam in front. And there's, what, 3.5 tenths between the two. That Precision Racing Esports car got a great run back onto the 2.5 miles of the Daytona Oval.
I mean, the amount of downforce is something we can consider now with the sprint series, of course, as opposed to the fixed, where all of the machinery will have been the same among all of the Porsches. It's not the case here. That wasn't a good line from Trepanier on that time around, though. Although Krasowski goes wide on the way into NASCAR 3 and 4, then ducks to the double yellow on the bottom to make sure he's got the shortest route around. What does Chris Beats do here as well? This is going on to the last lap, of course. Does he try and get in position for this win?
Daytona always produces some great racing. It's going to produce a photo finish at the line. So Trepanier was 7/100ths behind and will look to the outside. Beats tries to get a nose inside. Doesn't have the door and the line to do so. Holds as it is up towards the front. 1, 2, and 3. Heading off into the international horseshoe. I get the sneaking suspicion Trepanier's where he wants to be. It's now about the 2 exits that really matter. Onto the banking and out of the bus stop.
Yeah, I think both of these 2 leaders are where they want to be, actually. I think Trepanier is liking being in second, thinks that he can draft past on the way up towards the line, but I think Krasowski also realises, or believes anyway, in his mind that he can hold him off. So they're both pleased with where they are. The only driver who isn't is Chris Beats, who tried to do something about it at turn 1 there, was not really close enough and not aggressive enough to force the issue, because he probably would have just forced a crash. So he's happy to keep third. I think that's where he's going to finish. He's going to have a grandstand seat for this finish.
You can see there's a grouping behind. 7th on back has 5 cars. That might see a bit of a photo finish amongst themselves. But 3 for the lead, 3 for 4th position. Those are the 2 groups up towards the front as the clock strikes 0. It's officially the final lap here under the night lights at the Daytona International Speedway. How good a run can Vincent Trepanier get? He bobbles a bit through the corner, tries to pick up the throttle. But I tell you what, the Precision Racing Esports car got a great run out of the chicane.
I'm not a fan of that run at all from Trepanier. I think Krasowski has done enough here. That gap is way too big.
It's been a masterclass in patience, you'd have to say. Daniel Krasowski started up front, and while he hasn't finished led all the laps. He will finish up front as well. It's Precision Racing Esports on top at the Daytona International Speedway. Behind them, a photo finish between Simon Terrio and Chris Libra is going to see the 74 come out on top. My goodness, Daytona never disappoints, including a crash to the line in that chase for 7th.
What was that all about? There was a weird moment in that second group as well, because there was big speed differences there that you wouldn't normally see, and then there's a huge crash through the triangle on the last lap in the third group on the road. A bizarre race coming to an end, and in the end, Vincent Trepanier's only got himself to blame in that one. There's another photo finish, by the way, over the line there for 19th place. That's Boris Ovando and Sammy Hendricks going for that position, but Trepanier's only got himself to blame for that. He was in the prime position. He knew that he could win that race, and he could have, but his run through the bus stops again was just nowhere near good enough.
So 7 thousandths of a second between them at the line in that battle for 19th position. No closer finishes through the field. We'll go through and take a look at the replays in a few moments' time, as that seemed to be a car very slowly running their way to the checkered flag, as Cameron Keeley, who came in earliest of them all, maybe ran out of fuel on the run to the line as well. We can take a look at the provisional race results. I'm sure Race Control is going to have plenty to say about that one, where Daniel Kryczowski, 1/10 of a second the margin of victory. He comes out on top, with Vincent Trepanier just behind. Chris Beets tried to have a look to the inside at turn 1 on the final lap, didn't get the chance to fight further forward, while Jimmy Libre, Simon Terrio, and then Dalton Zavadil dropping back. Maybe another driver just running out of fuel on that run to the line. Jason Allen was 7th, with David Mendoza behind him. Arnaud Genet, Elliott White through the top 10 in what was a crash to the finish from what it seemed. Fernando Yaquez, Thomas Dunn, Abner Acosta, and then Martin Christian Challoner make up the rest of the top 15, with Challoner indeed being unable to get back in front of the pair of Porsches. You go down to 16th to find JP Alfonso, 17th to find Jerome Bertione, with Kwok Nin, Boris Ovando, and Sammy Hendricks through the rest of the top 20. Miguel Ruiz, Adrian Kokolas, and then Jeremy Littleton and Cameron Keeley, Dimitri Sosno, and Carlos Acano, all on the leading laps, and all the final finishers, with the likes of Gary Brown, Ethan Bass, Miguel Fonseca, and Marc-Andre Deschardins all DNFing along with Brandon Tabone and Kevin Simpson. We will try and make our way down to victory lane to start to piece our way through what was a fascinating 24-lap thriller at the World Center of Racing, and we can catch up with our race winner, Daniel Kryczowski. Daniel, talk to us about that race. It seemed like a race of strategy in many ways. Lots of fuel saving in the first stint, and then a game of when to go once you came out of pit lane.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what to do. I didn't expect to qualify first, and I actually didn't want to be there. And seeing Vincent behind me, you know, he's got pace, so I knew he'd be fuel saving. So I just played the fuel saving game. I was lifting like halfway down the straight. It was pretty funny, wondering if he'll make the pass on me, but he didn't. And it was nice when we came out of the pit. I was right behind him. It worked out pretty well.
I mean, it's always nice to win at Daytona. Does it fill you with some confidence going into the iRacing Daytona 24? Are you going to be driving that this Porsche in that event?
Yeah, for sure. This gives me confidence on top of this last weekend. Me and Boris, PRE, we did GT Endurance 3 hours, and we got second in top split. So things are going well, lining up for the 24-hour.
Hockenheim next week. Very different to this, especially in terms of the type of racing that we should expect. Are you looking forward to going over to Germany?
I don't even own the track. Never done a lap there. I'm probably going to skip it because I'm a father now and don't have too much time for this. So probably see you at the track following that.
Well, I guess we'll see you at Charlotte. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
I want to thank our sponsors, Advanced Sim Racing, Advanced Motorsports, Racebox Sim Racing, Butt Kicker, Moradness, Mr. Hedge, and to you guys for hosting a great broadcast.
We'll jump down to Vincent Trepanier, who finished in second position today. Vincent, I mean, you led coming out of pit lane. Did you think you could do enough to hold on to the lead?
It was very tough because it's all about the safe fuel on this track. So I was happy to start the race on the second place, to stay behind Daniel, because I don't want to make a pass on him. I just want to focus on the safe fuel. But heads up to Daniel, he wins it. So yeah, I'm happy with my second place.
I've got to ask, what were you doing on the grid? You seemed very excited and ready to go racing.
I don't know. It's because last week you talked about my how to say it when I use my tongue. So it's for that I it's for that I do it when I saw you on the broadcast.
We talked about it again today, so I'm glad that you played it up for us. Let's talk about the rest of the season. We've got Hockenheim, Charlotte still left to come. This seems like it's a championship where you're going to need to be consistent and staying out of trouble. How do you feel the first 2 rounds have gone for you?
I know SimCity racing team are very strong. PR is part 2, so I will try my best to stay in the top of the GT3 drivers. I will try to stay here. Yeah, I don't know how to say it, but I will do my best.
We'll see how it goes. Congratulations on second. We'll see you next week at Hockenheim.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thumbs up from Vincent Trepanier as we jump on down to the final driver on the podium, Chris Beats in the SimCity Racing Machine. Chris, victory a week ago, third here today, and a great start where you jumped up a handful of positions. You must be feeling pretty confident with your pace in this Porsche today.
Yeah, good time. I went with a conservative setup, so I didn't have the top end for the battle at the end, but I felt confident going into turn 1. And that was the kind of choices we had to make with our qualifying, so I'm happy with the result.
What does safe/conservative mean? How much riskier could you have gone with the setup?
Very. I like to live through the bus stop. I don't want to be on the highlight reel for the week, so I definitely added some downforce, and you could see that I had nothing for the 2 up front at the end.
Well, in terms of the team championship, 1, 2, 3, 4 last week, still seemed like you guys had decent pace today, if maybe it didn't all go your way in qualifying. How are you feeling for SimCity Racing, especially knowing that you've got 2 teams trying to fight in that team championship?
That's a great start. There was a couple drivers that weren't here last week, so that already puts us 1 step ahead, and we took advantage of those missing drivers and teams. So, yeah, we'll try and take the momentum and keep it throughout the season. It's such a variety of tracks, and you'll see talents for certain tracks. And like today was a bit of a bogey with qualifying. So, yeah, we'll look forward to next week, and hopefully we can keep it up there in the top 5.
Congratulations on third. We'll see you in a week's time.
Thank you. See you too.
SimCity Racing's Chris Beats wraps up our post-race interviews, and yeah, I'm looking forward to heading over to Hockenheim. Going to be a very different sort of a race, and while fuel mileage might still come into effect, definitely not in the same way as today, Ewan.
No, not in the same way, not even remotely to the same degree either over the course of the day. Not the draft either. It's going to be a little bit more about speed, even a little bit more about qualifying, even though today was as well. A lot more about speed, though, in terms of a pure race pace over the course of the day. That's going to be very important. A very much a changed circuit, of course, but that's still going to be dramatic racing. Maybe not this stuff over the line, though, to be fair.
Yeah, let's take one more look at this before we say goodbye, just because we saw the aftermath. So Jason Allen leads them in that SimCity Racing purple machine. You have Arnaud Genet behind, and as they come to the line, this is where things come unstuck.
So, the car on the bottom seems to me to just ever so slightly deviate from that yellow line and go straight into the side of the other Porsche, and still somehow I think will lead the group over the line there, Jason Allen. So let's see this again. Does he deviate slightly? I think he does, maybe.
I think what happens is he hits the apron, and that slightly sends him up, and because he was so fixated on trying to be on that low line, it just wasn't to be for him. So that's slightly unfortunate. But now what happened to... There was an Audi in the mix there that should have finished better, but I think ended up maybe getting a penalty as a result of that, because David Mendoza ends up finishing down in 22nd, I think because of an incident point penalty. That's the drama of races like this.
I've never seen someone get a penalty that late in a race. It must have been that contact there, mustn't it, I guess? And he was, what, meters from the line? So that's very unlucky, you've got to say.
So
very unlucky.
About as unlucky as you could get. We took a look at the schedule a couple of hours ago when we got underway. Let's take a look at it again. After Hockenheim, Charlotte and Suzuka to close out the first half of the season. And boy, what a schedule it is. The first of 4 seasons in 2024, Ewan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great schedule. Lots of, big Grand Prix circuits like Suzuka coming up, and Mugello, which has held the Grand Prix pretty recently, but also some tight and twisty ones. The Charlotte Roval in 2 weeks is going to be very interesting indeed. And Okayama as well for a penultimate round of a championship. That's where maybe a champion could be crowned, I suppose, if it goes particularly well for them. And maybe where there's going to be a dramatic filled championship moment at that very unique racetrack in Japan.
And the final round that can be dropped from your total Mount Panorama, the great mountain going to decide our champion and to close out our first of 4 seasons again in 2024. For now, we bid you farewell from the World Center of Racing. We look forward to the iRacing Daytona 24 in just over a week's time, but these drivers will get their fair share of this wonderful racing facility. For you and O'Leary, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a week's time, but don't forget, PRL action rolls on through the rest of the iRacing week.